Hello.
You couldn't spit out before.
I really thought I had enough time to finish eating, but I
have an
didn't.
apple, and I was like, scoffing it out.
Oh my god! Hi everybody! Happy Fast Fire Friday! Oh my god, my brain is so cooked. I couldn't form full sentences the middle of this week. We're just like it's over. It's over. We had a build last week, and we shipped 13.4, and since then we've shipped 4 service releases. So that's exciting. And yeah, it's been crazy. And we have in the flesh the Omnideath, otherwise known as the Squirtle. So I'm so excited. One of our top all-time Aspire Fridays viewers. Yeah, viewers.
We can call it.
Hold on. Turn that one. And author of our incredibly popular, highly used, business critical Aspire Pearl integration.
Maybe one download, the most important one.
That's pretty good. One is more. And you had written a blog about it that was really good. That did some good numbers when we tweeted it out. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, go by Omnideath, usually online. My real name's Matt. You can find it in the description there, so I can have credit in the future. Just software engineer for about 22 years. My first job was in Python, so the hate is, comes by it honest. And then switched over to .NET to get out of Python, then found a job doing .NET for the last 16 years. So, yeah.
Hell yeah. I did have to ask Matt his actual name yesterday, because even though we've associated online for probably 2 years now, I went to write the episode description. I was like, oh, I'll put his real name in it so that if anyone looks it up, it comes up. And then I was like, what is his name?
Who?
I was like, maybe it's Omni, and I was like, that can't be it. There's no way.
It's too cool. That's too cool of a name.
Yeah. So and this is not the first time I've done this with people in the Aspire community, because I know you all by your handles on Discord or YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I meet people like Steven Likens with the cat profile picture in the Discord.
Oh,
I know
Likens.
That's in my head. And he came to say hi at a conference, and I was like, Steven! Oh! It was just really So, anyways, that's Fowler. That's Seb. Seb doesn't really want to be here, but he joined in thinking that
as long as Seb has sessions running for the issues he has to fix, he can be here.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I leave soon.
Yeah. Just
right. And then Damien is doing his Summer Fridays stuff, but he may or may not pop in, hopefully, if he makes her in time. And then Fowler's dipping at one point. Yeah, exactly. Fowler's dipping at one point to go to a Twitter Spaces, which I was really mad at him about. But then I said I'd probably be more mad at him if he skipped going on someone's Twitter Spaces for Aspire Fridays. So I was gonna be mad at him either way,
But I can't.
Yeah, he can't win, so that's fine. Oh my god, Mitch, that's a great idea. Also, Mitch, go to sleep, man. Print out your Discord PFPs
or join.
No,
replace me.
Yeah. So
does Pearl work in terminals?
Does Pearl work in terminals? Is that what you just said?
You want to? You got a container open? Pearl V it right now. I bet it's in.
Mitch will fix it.
It's in there.
No.
Oh man.
Really?
Almost most container distros have it by default, unless you opt for a skinny one.
Oh my god, I'm so nervous.
How do I check that?
I haven't
Pearl-V
that Pearl code in a very long time. So
is Larry Wall on your box right now?
What?
That's the guy.
Crap! I have Pearl.
You have
it out here.
I'm on a Mac and I have Pearl. Pearl
wow, I don't have it on PowerShell.
Version 34, Pearl 5.
I'm gonna also try and refrain from making Pearl jokes, Pearl puns related to the jewelry. Or it's fuck shit.
No, already.
David beat me to it with his pearls of wisdom. As I was
buddy.
saying, I'm gonna refrain from making the puns.
Wait, I have Pearl too.
I have, yeah, most people do. You just don't know it. You just don't know
Interesting.
it. It's a workhorse, all right? It's silently doing it while y'all disparage it, okay?
Hold on.
And I had
Okay.
a buddy who did like a little, I don't remember what it was, like a blog, a micro blog, and he called it Pearls of Wisdom with a D.
Nice.
And we would just post bad code there.
Well, I guess everybody's free to. They have a free Maddie Swears square on Bingo if you're joining in today. So you're
Should
welcome.
we invite Larry Wall?
Do I? I don't know him.
I don't have Pearl on my Windows machine.
No,
Well, you shouldn't.
that's-
On Windows, you're not. But it's any Linux container that's not real slimmed down is probably going to have it.
Amazing.
I
Amazing.
didn't know that until I went on this journey to make the Spire integration. Yeah, like I had no idea how widespread it was. I thought it was just kind of like slowly dying off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh my god.
interesting language.
You also have some hard questions for us. We're gonna do some
I do.
real spicy. We're gonna get spicy here. So we'll do you want me to put up your screen first, or do you want to do the questions with the squares and then we'll do the screen later?
I get so there's like three things we could do. We could look at the integration itself. We could look at the community toolkit broadly to
Mhm.
try and like shine a light on how to contribute to it. And then I've got the questions. So I don't really know the best order to do that in, but yeah. Do you guys have a preference?
Since it's still early, we could do like something easy and then get into the questions
Sure.
midway, because then we'll have more people watching. We got 35 now. Well,
Okay.
at least.
Mm-hmm. So
That's good.
let's pearl it up. Let's look at that integration.
Look at these Pokemon.
I
Are you
have
a Pokemon fan?
just a little, just a little. And let's see. Don't let Fowler leave. Yeah, when's Fowler leaving? That's what
Yeah,
trying to
he's
do.
here till
That's ours.
he's got 2 hours. So I will make a buzzer noise, but when he's got like half an hour left, then we will.
blast the ham horn on him.
Yeah.
Hold on. What is this theme? What is this theme?
It's
Like-
beautiful. How dare you?
Pause.
What, you want it bigger?
Like, what?
What do you mean? It's beautiful.
This is custom, right? Like
Yeah.
you made this.
Yeah,
I
and
can
I
tell.
don't publish it.
I could tell. That's good.
I
You don't
love
publish
Okay, first off, rude. Already, less than 5 minutes. Brutal.
You see what Pearl does to him?
Isn't this a roster setup, like part of the Aspire Fighters?
See what Pearl does to a man.
I love this theme. I would totally use
Hold
this. The font
font
might
is
be much for me, but like the syntax highlighting is amazing.
I
What
love
font is
it.
that? Terminal font?
It's Fixus Excelsior.
Yep.
And it's the old Notepad font that
Wow.
somebody preserved on GitHub, and it's the one true font. So let's give
Incredible.
it some props.
Incredible.
It's going to put S's in your zeros.
That's so sick, dude.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I use this on every machine for the last, oh my God, since it got dropped from Windows.
Yep.
Which was like around, was it in XP that they dropped? Whatever. That's way too in the past. But yeah, like at some point Windows stopped including it, and I didn't like that. So
That's
there was an
amazing.
era where you had to go to a really sketchy website to get it, and then
Mm.
somebody took it from that sketchy website and put it on GitHub. So
You have to go on the dark web.
yeah,
Mhm.
basically.
Oh my god. Okay, can you show me a Pearl? Okay, we were just about to do it. Can you
I
show me
will.
what Pearl looks like? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this
Nice
is,
ligatures. Nice ligatures. I like
thank
that.
you. It wears clothes. It has semicolons. It has punctuation. You don't need to count tabs to make sure it compiles.
Didn't PHP come like start from Perl? Isn't PHP like a start from that Perl syntax?
Now, look, probably I know they were intertwined at some point, but I am not a Perl historian, so I can't.
Let me ask the agent. Hold on.
Yeah.
You keep going.
But so I've got a repo of samples at github.com/omnideth aspire-perl examples. And so I've just put a few together that, it's nothing crazy. This one's just dumping something to the console using this script. App host is pretty simple. It's got the three, I'm going to get shot by real Perl lovers, but there's, I think, 3 package managers, CPAN, CPAN minus, and Carton. Carton is kind of like a more modern style where you make like a packages.json equivalent called CPAN file, and you can install like your libraries locally with a local lib, and it's snapshots, and it says like a package lock. So it's got like, pretty modern features for a dead quote unquote language. And it can act as an API. So I like ripped out the Blazor example and put a Perl API in the backend. It looks very much like minimal APIs, that we're all familiar with. So it's not what?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a program. It does not get the respect it deserves as a language.
Hold on.
I don't even love it that much, but it shouldn't have lost. I'll say it that way.
Interesting. So are you a Perl advocate?
I would say if you have to use a scripting language, yes, but I don't really use scripting languages if I can help it. So, and in the future, I think I would be a .NET scripting language advocate because of the file-based apps.
File-based apps.
Oh,
But
yeah, that is baller.
until what, .NET 14, that's when when is it going to be fully officially supported after the LTS versions drop off that didn't have it,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And then there's one big thing I notice is a lot of ecosystems are brownfield, and you guys talk a lot of greenfield, and there's tons of people in .NET Framework that aren't going to be able to do some of the .NET scripting. So I think it's a good scripting language that has holes in it from being unsupported for a long time. I think historically they had a big problem around Perl 6, which ended up, instead of taking over, it got switched to a whole different language. They just made Raku. I think I'm butchering the pronunciation. But so Perl 6 never happened. They're still on Perl 5. But they are still updating the language and making it nicer. It's like 64-bit only on modern Perl stuff.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been an interesting time, like spending so much time with Perl. I chose to do it because I wanted to do something with Aspire, and a language integration seemed fine, and there weren't a lot of openings, right? You've got a lot of the big ones covered. So I chose Perl because I was familiar with it.
Nice.
Anyway.
Is the variable declaration actually my? Is that what that says?
Yeah.
My listen URL?
That's scoping. So my versus our. Our is like a global scope, and my is like local scoped.
I can't decide if I actually really love that. I might actually really love that. Wait.
Y'all haters, you're gonna turn around. You're gonna mess around and love Perl. Careful.
My. What is Mojolicious?
That is I guess you would call them like the API people in Perl. I'll send a link at some point, but Mojolicious Perl is like it's like I don't know how to describe it. I'll send you the link in StreamYard, but it's they do like APIs. I think they have like async await libraries in the ecosystem as well. So they're like a good group that is helping Perl stay modern, and because Perl has roots in web development in a lot of cases, and so this is like a modern take on web development in Perl. And I didn't know about this until I started doing this, and learned that Mojolicious is up there. I learned that there's a guy, JJ Atria. I'm not sure how to if it's Jatria or Atria, but that guy wrote an open telemetry SDK in Perl. And so I was able to get open telemetry with Perl that way. So there's people out there trying to keep this language moving. and it's pretty neat. So,
This feels like you know when you find some rare topic and you go deep in a subreddit
Yes.
where you should not be.
Yes.
oh,
This is so like you found Perl, and then you found a Perl community, and then you found like the modern Perl like frameworks and languages, like all the new features of Perl or Herano that no one has ever seen, because only that community has seen this stuff and has built it.
it's true. It's true.
This is,
And one of the lost the train of thought. I'll get it back in a minute. Oh, one of the things I'm really waiting for is to be able to debug in Perl.
In Perl.
So you guys got to leave David alone so he can get there. You know what I mean?
Is there a VS Code extension for Perl that does debugging?
Yes, and I decided not to try and wire into that because I knew that it was coming.
More
Yeah.
changes.
I'm a grown man with a family and a job, so I gotta, sneak in an hour or two here and there to be able to work on stuff. So I didn't want to develop the current, like Python, I think,
Yep.
has the ability to do debugging with a VS Code extension or plugging into that somehow. And I could do that, but then I'm gonna have to redo it whenever David does his magic. So I gotta pick and choose my battles for what to support.
Yep.
we'll get there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Get there.
Eventually.
Yeah, they do have a dab debugger. Dab protocol. Pat.
This is DAB,
Dab.
but the protocol
Yeah.
is DAB.
I told you I'm cooked, man.
Yeah.
Inside of my brain right now is the Energizer Bunny just banging two things against the side of a drum. Like that's all that's going on up there. So we're doing great. Okay, so show us the integration. Like, how did you build it? And you built this in the early Opus days, so like 3 whole months ago. So,
I started building it in, like I said, grown man, family, and all that. So I started building it in September. Was like when I was like, okay, all right, and it started just looking at the documentation that Fowler provided in Discord for how to make an integration and what you're looking for. And so just kind of learning what a resource is, what annotations are, getting a foundation. And when I originally started trying it, it was me trying to make it as a container resource. I don't exactly know why I thought that's what I needed to do, but eventually I realized I needed to make it more of like an executable resource. And so I found the community toolkit, had it working in a container, then kind of undid all that. And then around December, y'all had the snake debugging and made me mad. And so then I was like, okay, well now I need to one up it, or at least catch up. So now like my mission is just make this as good as the Python one with my time. And then later in December, we all know kind of agentic coding kicked off and kind of like leveled up. And so I used that. Opus 4.6 was my main driver. I really enjoyed working with that. And I had it. I mean, what do you do when you code anything? You steal ideas from other languages, other whatever. So I was kind of using the Python integration as a guide to make it to begin with. And I eventually made Opus map out all the features that the Python integration had and tell me what was hidden behind private stuff. Because if you look back into Discord, I'm like, can I get to this? Open it up. I want it to be public. And so it created a roadmap. And then at the end of that, put the things that I couldn't do. And I just kind of would work in small chunks over, over the weeks, where 2 hours here, a couple hours there, whatever. And I think the hardest part for somebody like me is I've not contributed to open source. All my code has been professional in the past.
Oh, wow.
And so it's intimidating to get in there, right? But with the combination of all the documentation from the Discord and the community toolkit itself having its own contribution guidelines and stuff like that, I just started hacking away at it and got there. So I'm not really sure how you show the integration the best. Like examples seem to be, like showing how to use it. But the code's here. I'll make it just a tiny bit smaller if we can.
Nice.
Can people still read that?
Yeah.
Okay. So in here, I've got, app resource, which then gets to the extensions, and I have the TypeScript stuff that's not actually been PR'd in yet because I wasn't in at the time David Pine went through and got everybody. So I had to add my own TypeScript stuff after.
Right.
So you can add a script or an API, technically the same thing, but I just gave a shape because there's extra arguments. And these kind of chain into setup methods that you guys are familiar with. Like I kind of stole the idea of like the core Python setup. And so I kind of stole that and used the extension methods to kind of build off of it. Nothing, I don't think it's anything super crazy. We have package manager annotations to kind of control which package manager we use. I made a little annotations folder here with all these kind of guys. And there's also a virtual environment support on Linux currently with a thing called Perl Brew. And that allows you to not use system Perl. So I had some of you check your Perl version at the beginning of this. That's your system Perl. And for Linux, you probably want to use a virtual. And this is something I learned while doing this, that they had this, but there's also a Windows version that I'll add later called Berry Brew. But so yeah, it's got virtual environments, it's got multiple package managers, it's got different ways to express those packages, which some people in this chat might get hit with questions about later. And yeah, any questions to help me wrangle it? Or
this is, I think just from looking at this stuff, so you've been working on this for at least since like 13 or before 13.
Correct. I think 9.5 was when 9.4, 9.5 was when I started. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's matured from when you first started talking in the chat about what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So you have deployment support. You have like Docker file generation. You have.
I have one. I think I marked it as experimental because I'm gun shy about that. But I believe I have it in there. I just don't. I'm not honoring it yet. Give me more time.
This is pretty cool.
So
crazy.
Shoot, I had an idea. It's gone.
Do you have it like? Can we see run? Like, I guess you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, show that demo app.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's cool about this too is like you have been a really good source of like feedback on the community toolkit in general, which for those of you who don't know what the community toolkit is, it's like kind of like Aspire blessed, but not maintained by the core Aspire team. We have Aaron, who we work with, who like kind of it represents us, and we all contribute to it at times, but it's a really good lower barrier to entry open source contribution point than the actual Aspire repo, where we really only put in things that we need, or that we had originally. We maintain. Yeah. But like we had a set originally, and then we were like, all right, we're not really going to add anything else here unless it's super important.
Let me just say, I hate this feature. You
can turn it off. The integrated browser.
I want it off by default.
Yeah.
Find this feature.
The integrated browser.
Integrated browser.
Oh, me too. 10 out of 10. Get rid of it. Burn it to the ground.
Never use it.
Yeah.
It's gonna get fixed.
I'll use it just so that I can keep it all on one screen. But yeah,
I guess it is nice. Demo purpose wise.
I want them, if they would just let me Control-Shift-click to get it out. I would be fine with that, but I can't. It doesn't work.
Sorry, Marshall. You can love it. You can turn it on.
That's fine. Marshall, do your thing.
That's some Java developer. No,
you must have like
Marshall, I love you.
You must have a huge screen.
Yeah. What is the problem with integrated browser? Fuel asks. For me, it's that it doesn't have any of my cookies or my stuff, my auth, my login. Like it doesn't know who I am. So
and for me, I hate that it gets clipped by the terminal. I don't want to get rid of the terminal. I don't. It's just, and then I've got a chat window open over here, so it's like
There's no
it's
space.
whipping it down, and I've got to scroll to see everything. You know,
Mhm.
I'm not a fan personally, but it's
No.
fine. So here it's working. It takes a while to install things. I have some questions in this vein later. But basically installing dependencies, because I bounce around my boxes a lot. So, this one's my Windows box. It failed to start. It'll tell me why. Probably I need to run it in my, I'll just force a install of something.
Oh, Tommaso says there's a quick way to get to the regular browser.
Oh, hit me, Tommaso.
It's on the top right next to the address bar. There's the 3 dots. Yeah. And then in there, I guess, open an external browser.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no hotkey though. So
That's not quick. That's 2 clicks.
Look, they didn't even do it with a hotkey. Like it doesn't even get a keyboard shortcut. How rude.
It just needs to be off.
Yeah, I agree. For the dashboard, I have used it with some of the web app stuff, and that is nice, but the dashboard, no.
I have no qualms with it existing. It just should be opt-in, not opt-out.
But then how would anybody know it exists, Fowler?
I don't care.
Also, I think I uncovered something for y'all to do. When you aspire stop, what does that say right there?
Oh,
What does that say?
yeah.
What does that say?
Ooh.
What does that say?
Who built that?
We need to probably just get rid of Aspire Run.
No. What?
Who uses it?
Me until recently. You guys made fun of people for not using Aspire Start.
We have telemetry. Like everyone uses Aspire Run. I think we need to advertise Aspire Start better because it came after Run.
Yeah, and isn't it still technically built on Run?
It uses Run internally.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm switching to a different project that I've definitely built on Windows before, so that y'all don't have to see me troubleshoot what package.
I mean, troubleshooting sounds like an Aspire Fridays.
That sounds like a normal Friday.
That's true. So yeah, just web front end hitting the back end. That weather is coming from Perl API, and then we can see the chatter between the two here. So it's dumping out traces. Shout out. So just a little. It's neat. It's neat.
I don't know that any other platform has this good of a Perl integration.
No.
Might be the first.
You're welcome.
Well, you got it. So once this is done, we'll have to add Perl app host support so you can write the app host.
Oh God, yeah, I'm dreading that. The 2 things I'm dreading is the TypeScript support adding, because I do not. I'm not a JavaScript guy, not a TypeScript guy.
Yeah.
I've been blissfully in the back end for most of my career.
It'll be easy.
So the front end missed me with all that, but the app host in particular is probably going to have a bunch of warts that are tied to Perl features that aren't. I'm not looking forward to the landmines therein, but I will attempt it at some point.
Did you add the Aspire exports on your extension?
It's in PR.
It's in a PR right now.
Okay.
So
did you try it, or did you just?
I have an example project. So if we switch, so that's it running. Just people can see that it actually worked. Whatever. So we can Aspire stop, and I'll switch back over to Community Toolkit real quick. I have an example.
Oh no. It says stale. I need to get my agent to fix it.
Oh, stale probably because
Stale.
we're struggling over there in that community.
Yeah, no, we have been abusing Aaron. The community toolkit is up to date, by the way, though, everybody. So that's good news.
That is good news.
Yeah.
I have. It must be in a different branch. No, it's here.
I saw the TypeScript folder in your Perl folder.
There you did. Yeah, TypeScript. There it is. So yeah, I've got it here and exposed.
That's old. That's too old.
This is see, y'all move too damn fast. I'll just say, you got your little agents running around burning tokens everywhere, and
I mean,
people are struggling.
if only
to
you
keep
knew.
up. Yeah, I had a good guess on how many of y'all are burning. So. But yeah, so what's old about it?
No, I saw the .ts extension, and now in 13.4 it's .mts.
MTS.
That's why I'm saying it's old. But
Now
I won't blame it. I won't blame you because
I'm behind here.
I'm sure the whole city is the
think-
community toolkit is .ts. I don't remember actually.
So
No, you have to change, right?
You guys switched to MTS, right?
I did it, but I don't remember. It was last week. So
I think I fixed it on my Linux box, and I just haven't
Okay.
pulled here. I believe my PR had the .mts instead of the .ts. So
And like you shouldn't feel bad. That literally changed. And
Last week.
Was it the last
Yeah.
week?
It was last Monday. It's 10 days ago.
Right. And it was my fault. Seb had a PR open for maybe 2 weeks, and I was trying to figure out if anyone knows what MTS even means or MJS. But it turns out it's a new. It's not new, but it's like at least people that use.
I just figured it out whenever I was.
So how do you, Seb, what's the right way to migrate? If
Yeah,
I'm
so
on
I
Windows
found
10?
that out.
well, you don't have to migrate, but it's just the same code. So what actually it's already migrated because you see line 1.
Yeah.
It means it's compatible with the what file did you open actually? We are still in the Perl one. It's your file. You just copy pasted the app OCS. So the line 1 shows that you are using the latest Aspire 13.4 generation because it points to the new location, and it happens that Aspire 13.4 support .ts and .mts. It's just by default it will generate the .mts file, so it works. You just renamed it; it should work.
Huh. Really?
Yep.
Yeah, it was a pretty easy
Delete
swap.
or
At first,
comment out.
At first, I was in there.
Yeah, if you rename
Comment
this
out,
file
right?
.fake or old.ts or something like that, then you do Aspire run and it will still work.
Interesting.
I might be wrong, but I'm
Let's see.
pretty sure that's it.
No, I
It should-
think
it
what
will
I
be
need to do is probably kill my local and repull it because I did make those changes already, and I don't have like a workstation for it. So give me a minute. Because I think the PR has. Let me double check the PR.
I'm sorry. Did you just use the
Wait.
run window to open Chrome?
Always. What is that? Not what
What?
y'all use a mouse?
No, I
Right.
do Windows key or Command space on Mac, and then I type Chrome.
I do Windows R Chrome. That's the same. It's like the same. Right?
Windows R works if you are accurate.
Yeah, which I'm not.
It's why
I
Spotlight
am.
search. Yeah, I mean you're accurate.
Yeah.
It's why we're in shock because normally you have to put in something like the accurate name of the actual suitable. Like if you want to launch VS, you couldn't say Visual Studio. You type devenv, but you have to know what devenv is versus searching
That's
for
true.
the application. So but I mean veterans, I get it. Let me try it. MS Edge. It worked.
See, I didn't even know it was MS Edge. I
Exactly.
thought I always tried Edge and just got mad that it didn't work.
Yeah. There's a Power Toys thing that I think is like Spotlight on Windows where you can search for applications.
Yeah. So my PR does have the MTS already. So let me just nuke this local. It's behind.
I won't
Yeah.
lie, this is pretty beautiful so far. I am pretty impressed by how clean this implementation is. Clean and complete.
Hey, hey, I'll take a compliment.
Although you haven't done anything besides run, I want to see it break. So you're gonna publish.
You want to see something break?
You're gonna try compose. This is Aspire Fridays. We don't do perfect things here.
Yeah. Wait, look at the windows with the Squirtle.
I mean, this is so clean.
You play Pokemon Go?
No. I cut my teeth playing Pokemon Red, all the
Right. Oh yeah, the OG.
Mhm.
Yeah. Give me a second. I'm going to repull the community toolkit while we talk about other stuff. Let me get you a question real quick. While I'm fiddling. Let's see. Where do we stand API design is the topic. Where do we stand on letting the app host take the wheel and install things for the users?
Yeah, in our roadmap, we have this work item that is like runtime acquisition. And it's like one of our final boss items to go look at. So right now, just this level set, when you add Python, Perl, Node, .NET, any kind of resource, we don't install the required software to make that run. So you have to get Perl yourself on the path, and then you can relaunch Aspire. But it does seem like the next phase would be like we can acquire the actual software for you, right? Now that is a thing that we want to do, but it's like a can of worms.
It is.
And not just like technology wise, but like security and which package managers do we want to use, and how do we make sure it's like done in a way where users can provide consent and it has to work in run and deploy mode. So it's a thing that we have to do with one integration first. Yeah, .NET Up is like one of many problems, right? So, and that has to be acquired too. If you want to, for example, use DevTunnels, you have to install the CLI and put it like on disk and then install it. So we need to pick an integration where it's like super light touch and do it end to end for every OS. And then I think that will help us understand what we're getting into. And once we have the template, it'll be easier, right?
And so the reason I ask is because like whenever I was getting this all set up, I
man just typed a path. He just typed it. Nobody else noticed that. The man typed a path with his fingers. That was amazing.
You know why?
Do y'all just use a mouse? Do y'all just use a mouse like?
I use Opus. I use Opus to do that.
Y'all just Maddie.
Don't make typos. That's crazy. If I tried to type a path out, it would take me 10 minutes. Okay, sorry. I'm done. I'm back. Silent.
I use Whisper to open Opus to open my folders.
Of course you do. Oh my god.
On 4.8 on high because it's more tokens.
One of the things that I ran into, and thinking broadly, what job or project do you onboard into that does not have install script for stuff that you set up, right? So whenever my first PR into the toolkit was I had process start, commands to auto install things instead of just relying on the dashboard's interaction service to give you the link to figure it out. I was just installing it. And then I got gun shy for all the reasons you mentioned. But I do think, the original, we're on version 515 of the Aspire slogan, but one of them was like, just F5 and run, which is a lie if you're not installing this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why it's in the roadmap.
Anyway.
I think you are spot on. So I mean, when we first discussed language integrations, we were like, should we use containers? Because that's how you get stuff today for everything else. But then it makes everything harder, like debugging, bind mount. So we kind of said, okay, we want to run the thing on your machine, but then how do you get the actual thing in the first place? And so I think we are like aligned with that. We have to do this to make Aspire complete, but we basically need to pick something that has a reasonable install experience. Like pick Python or whatever, and then
how dare you? How much are they paying you?
Definitely not Perl.
Really?
Pick Python, and then we. I mean, like, just as a joke, like we have for Aspire itself, which is not, we didn't put it in the blog post or anything, but we now have Homebrew, Winget, and NPM support.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can install Aspire now via the install script, NPM, the .NET tool, Brew, or Winget.
And do those real quick, like they all installed like to different areas? Is that correct? Do I remember that?
Which you could imagine is real interesting discussion we have to have. Like, what if you install the script, then wing it at the same time, and they override the path? Which one wins? How do you figure out which one's on the path? When you run self-update, like what happens? So like I think we definitely want to do this. We just need to pick something easy first to like.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then maybe there'll be commands in the apples that are like require winget install or whatever, and then
require on path.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that is that's good to know that it's on the roadmap, because that's one thing I kept coming back to, like getting real worked up about. I'm like, I should just install this for people, but I understand, like that's why I didn't, was like I don't want to just be mucking around on people's machines, so I'll let them, the link works, that's fine. I did get back to the MTS, and we can try it.
Love it.
Other thing to note, like, so I have this crazy pull request in the Aspire repo that is a draft that no one has seen before. That's like, we're gonna use Aspire to build Aspire.
Yeah.
We're doing it for like a subset of things first. So
use Aspire to build Aspire. That rhymes with something I'm trying to do as well. With the I don't know if I have it on this box. I have a Perl Azure SDK, because there isn't one. And
really?
Yeah.
So surprising.
Well, hold on. I have not written it. I have prepped to write it using Aspire as the harness. And so that's what I'm going to be spending my tokens on for the next few months, is trying to scaffold up that. Now, there are a couple of, like, you can look in the graveyard of Perl libraries and you can find an unsupported Azure Blob connection and like an unsupported intra auth. Well, back then it was Azure AD, right? So you can find like people that put stuff out there to try, but they haven't been updated since like 2018 or 2019. So there is no Azure SDK, and like Rust just finished theirs, like 2 weeks ago or something. Yeah. So I'm working on a skill that's like Aspire Scaffold, and I want it to get your repo to the point where you have a roadmap set up with an app host and like a goal, and the roadmap is like all the steps that you need to finish that goal and what Aspire integrations you can install to like help you achieve it. So like that's something I want to like cook on in the background. You said using Aspire to build Aspire. It's like using Aspire to build a thing so that you have a live integration test environment to work with. I think that's like, because you guys are really focused on the development story, right, or the deployment story right now. But I don't.
Well, we're kind of split brains, right? We every release we have this like smorgasbord of things we can do that are kind of like, we can do that or this, and then the devs get split amongst whatever is important. Right. So right now, deployment is not like, it's not as though the entire team is working on just making deployment work. It's like one dev with Opus, which is like 5 devs.
Well, if it's Mitch with Opus, it's like 12 devs too.
12 devs. Like, GPT 5.5, right? Like, is my go-to still.
But I just don't deployment isn't on my radar for Aspire. I'm just such a tool user that Aspire has become like one of the best tools. I just love using it for sketching out ideas or trying things, learning how to integrate with Azure emulators instead of paying money to do it on the cloud. 10 out of 10. I think one of my big requests is that y'all bully people into finishing emulators for the rest of the Azure stuff. Like, fight them, get them to.
Fun fact, there are other internal teams that have built Azure emulators for the Azure team because of this reason. Like, we just did a blog, I think it was last week. The team in China, the WCX, they use Aspire for a bunch of stuff. They built their own
they did
emulator.
They did a Key Vault, didn't they?
They did Key Vault.
Yeah. I think I made like an issue for them or made a request on something, but
So
like
freaking funny.
that, if you need a KPI or whatever, if you want to increase adoption, you need to get people tinkering with it locally for free, so that then you can just scaffold
like
in. Right?
Yeah,
Um,
I've done this. I have an email thread. I can't bully people that are like run the company. I have an email thread with a lot of people that like run some of these teams to bring up some of this stuff. I think you need a combination of like top down and bottom up. So like a lot of, but we've done it like with service bus and configuration, and a lot of them have been building emulators anyway. I think there's still some big ones that you need to do anything real. Like Enter keeps coming up, and there are teams that have built clones of it internally.
Yeah.
I feel as though combination of like people screaming and us pushing from the top will help. So keep pushing.
Yeah.
I was pinging. So James, what's his last name? I can't remember. The guy who built the Key Vault emulator. James, we hired him. He works at Microsoft now.
What?
And I was pinging him. I said, "Hey, do you think we should just show the Key Vault team your emulator?"
You should.
We really should.
Yeah.
In the background, I'm trying to run that TypeHost app script. We'll see how that works.
App script.
TypeHost app script.
Pretty good.
Or whatever. Yeah. See how little I use TypeScript.
I like that.
Yeah, so that's good to know that y'all are pushing on that. That was one of my like requests of the group.
Okay.
At some point, Fowler offhandedly
Never.
That's not good.
Complained about my with package usage.
Oh yeah.
Here. So what this bumps into what is an app host concern to you? What is an Aspire concern to you? Why is the package manager an Aspire concern, but not the package?
Yeah. So we just this is a fun debate. We had this debate, I want to say, in the first version of Aspire, where people were adding resources for everything, and it came up in Orleans. And it was like, what is a resource? What isn't a resource? If it's deployable, should it be a resource? It should not be a resource. And I think after a couple of rounds, we came to the conclusion that you can model anything as a resource, but you have to understand what you're getting into. Like if you make a resource, it ends up in a dashboard. It ends up being deployable. Like there's some default assumptions that we make about resources. So it's less about what should and shouldn't be, and more about if you make it a resource, these things will happen, and you can't prevent them from happening. So if you want to model things as resources, and you want to support, like you want to show every package in the dashboard, because that, like, let's say your goal was to make it show up in the dashboard, so you make it a resource. You can't just say I'll make it a resource. You have to say, if I make it a resource, these 10 things will happen, and I only want 2 of them. And then you decide, do I want it to be a resource if I only want two of 10 things? And every now and then you can kind of like turn off or toggle behaviors, but you should know about all the behaviors. So you make it a resource, I run Aspire deploy, it's going to attempt to do something with that resource. If you make it a resource and it's in the dashboard, it might need to have a status because it will show up as like gray and like unknown or a source. So there are things you are basically buying into the moment you make it a resource. So as long as you are hyper aware of like, here are all the things that happen or assumptions that we make in the platform, if you make it a resource, then I think I am less picky about what is and isn't a resource, right? So I think thus far it has evolved organically, and people have done either or, and you can be as granular or as like coarse grain as you want. So for our things, the package manager is a resource. So you can like click on it. It has commands. You can start, stop. If you made a package a resource, it could have commands, and it could show up in the dashboard just fine. But I think it's just we haven't spent time thinking about that level of granularity. And maybe you may want more features, like maybe I want it to be collapsible, because now you're going to see every package in the dashboard as a child resource, and we haven't designed for that.
And right? that is something that I don't struggle with, but like the you are a brand new dev, you're sent onto a place and you are in a language you're unfamiliar with, and you don't understand that you don't have a package for that language yet. So to my mind, surfacing it in the app host is like explicitly avoiding a foot gun to understanding what's not on your system and making it an installer resource that the app is waiting for is useful, because it implies, hey, I can't even start this script until I have X, Y, or Z on there. And especially in these old scripting languages, a lot of times it's just 1 or 2 packages, right? So it's not like 15 necessarily. So that's, in my head, I think surfacing the explicit package is like a gift to the next generation of people that is going to ultimately have to support this after you're gone, right? So
it could be.
Yeah.
Like if you told me I want to represent package JSON in the app host as individual resources, I would say you can do that, but who is it for? Because it might be because you're trying to make it show up in the dashboard. Like that's the reason you want to make it a resource and no other reason. And it might just feel like overkill because there's a representation already on disk that all the tools know of. And maybe what we're looking for is a way to kind of like, maybe we want a specific dashboard feature to show more things, but maybe the resource is the means to an end. Like maybe what you want is something that we don't have yet and we have to add more features.
Now the way it works now, with the exception of, I can't run it right now because of this message pack. I think it's
called. That just happened.
Yeah, I know. It was like a today error. Is that like on stable? Could I roll back to stable or something?
This is like a real thing that happened this morning that I saw.
Correct. Yeah, I saw somebody already put a thing for it, but it's blocking me from showing. But in general, the only complaint I have with the current system is you guys don't allow colons in the package, so I have to turn them into something else. But that's not y'all's fault. That's probably
it is our fault. So we made it restrictive because we made some assumptions early on about what a resource name should be, and we figured making it more restrictive. And by the way, you can turn it off now in 13.4. You can add an annotation that says disable name checking.
Oh, so I can make that prettier for people.
Yeah, you can.
Really?
Yeah, that works now.
What?
Because really? if you want to do something like model packages or something arbitrary that isn't getting deployed or isn't going to become a URL, you can just disable name validation, because I assume those resources will not show up in those environments.
But
so
why is it an annotation? It will fail at build because we have an attribute on these names also.
No, we changed how that works. We changed where it gets validated. So we look for this annotation and we skip things. And that was done because when you add the installer resources, let's say you have a resource name called Perl-API, the installer becomes Perl-API-installer. We add a suffix. And then we had some errors that because the name was too long. So for resources that are ephemeral or that don't need to be deployed or don't show up in certain environments, we have a way to skip validation for those things.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
It would be hard to know if you didn't review the PR.
Bad PM.
I am a terrible PM. You're right. Terrible.
Well, we have 500 PRs per release, so it's hard to.
My agent didn't pick that up either, man.
Well, David did.
It did actually.
So,
it was probably in the change log.
It's definitely in change log.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just have like these. They just show up as dependent resources right now, like installer resources, and that's fine to me. I don't think I need any other features. It would be cool if you could like condense them, but that's just little dashboard tweaks. It sounds like you're not offended by the use of explicit package if you know what you're getting into.
Yeah. I think that's fine.
Yeah, the reason I like them is because you just don't want to run your app, and if you do it with like a package lock and it's a language that somebody's not familiar with, then they have to know how that language does package management, and if they're not familiar, they're probably not. So I did put in the modern, use a CPAN file, which is your packages.json equivalent, So like I have the ability to just kind of do it like the other languages, but when I'm doing it, I want to just put the 1 or 2 dependencies there so they show on the dashboard.
Yeah.
Now, what I don't know is why this, maybe my my Aspire examples are a little behind the bleeding edge, so they're not getting hit with that severe CVE. So I can run things in my examples, but I can't in the community toolkit right now.
The toolkit might have warnings as errors turned on, blocking the build from like passing for warnings.
Probably.
That seems like it.
We could probably check that.
You still eating, Maddie?
I've just been taking my time, having a bite here and there.
You can eat. It's fine.
Well, StreamYard doesn't have good noise cancellation, so I have to mute myself. So you don't have to hear me chew.
ASMR? You mean the ASMR? Are you chewing?
That reminds me. We need to figure out if we're going to stream next week when I'm in the office. Because if so,
You should.
I'm going to be in town next week, Seb, by the way. So,
Well, everyone picks a room and do as if you are home.
yeah.
We could do it.
Check. Where's David at right now? Home? Where am I?
Maybe we'll
Home?
Aspire next week, Fowler.
That will be crazy. We can't do all of it. That's too big.
Why would we not stream? Because it's the summer. I'm the Northern Hemisphere summer, excuse me. And everyone's out all the time. So it's kind of hard to schedule right now.
You have to check the World Cup schedule first.
A good pulse. Also, because sometimes it's like Wednesday and I realize I haven't like figured out what we're going to do on the stream that week. And then I'm like asking people, like, I believe the first time I asked Omnideath, I was like, do you want to come on the stream in like 2 days? And he was like, no, the PR isn't even merged. And I was like, so?
Yeah, because I didn't want, if there's one other human in the world, I didn't want them to have to pull it down, manually pack it to use it. So
That's super fair. Yeah, no, I get it.
all right, yeah. So I just turned warnings as errors off, so we can look at the app host in TypeScript cooking up here. So yeah, it's telling me that I need this to run, and now I've got a Perl script as a service that's just going to hit an API and slam into this endpoint over and over again to prove that it's alive. So that's the integration test, which I kind of goofed on. I misunderstood something in my first PR, so I need to flesh out the integration test more. But yeah.
Yeah, test. That's crazy.
Yeah. As far as like the community toolkit itself for contributing to demystify it, the repo's set up, and if you're coming in to do an integration, you're going to add like 3 total projects and mess with some shared resources to get it all working. And you're going to have your source, which is where the actual Aspire internals are figured out. And you're going to have some sort of builder extensions, and if you have any annotations, what have you, and you'll need a little tiny README that will get packaged as the NuGet description, I think. And then after you've done that, you can dog food it in the examples yourself. So you need an example project to go with it that will end up becoming the integration test as well. But as you can see, I was running it here. So I was dog fooding with this as I was building. And after you've got, there's also the tests, and you kind of put your own tests here together. And you will get in trouble if you use regions, apparently. So you need to do a bunch of different files instead of regions. And after you've made those 3 projects and you're comfortable with your example as like the driver for your integration, you can pull a PR and get moving on that. So there's contributing guidelines in here, and there's like, I can't remember where exactly it is. In here somewhere is like making an integration specific one and how to set up. So the contributing.md at repo root is going to give you plenty of information on how to get started. And yeah, for building an integration or for setting it up, because it does use a dev container, and sorry in advance, because that dev container is very much, you're probably going to want to crank that 8 up. It's real tight whenever you're whenever you're loading everything. And whatever you do in your integrations, if you need certain extensions, like you asked earlier, if there were Perl extensions that help you debug, these guys right here, I added into the dev container so that other people, if they're working on it, can debug just fine. Trad dev is still alive and well.
Hell yeah.
And then after you install or after you run the dev container, there's a post create script here that you can, I needed to get this package manager installed as well. So you can kind of use that as like your framework. You're really only adding 3 projects to the community toolkit and then kind of touching a few of the shared projects to wire it all up. And yeah, they just started doing the Aspire skills in the community toolkit, which is really nice. Because when I started, you didn't even have the Aspire skill yet. And I need to give you all flowers for that, because as a tool maker, the coolest thing that you've done with LLMs so far is teach other people's LLMs how to work in their system, in your system. And that makes moving faster, easier, if you've got the ability to spend the money on it, right? So yeah. So I hope, the people, there's like, Aaron is really the main guy. That poor man is drowning in PRs. So we need probably more people contributing, but also more people code reviewing, and that's intimidating too. One of the other shared things, I didn't have any experience with GitHub Actions or any of that, but the CI is in GitHub Actions, and that uses test runners we actually have Windows ones as well. And they come with Perl on them, and I didn't know that, so I was like putting Perl on them, and he was like, "You don't need to do that," and I was like, "Oh, all right." So you may have to add stuff to the, especially for your integration tests. You may need to add things to the actions so that your scripts get set up correctly. I think I have one in here for Perl. No, I didn't have to, because they had the thing. They had Perl on the boxes. But yeah, so that's like the overview of the community toolkit that I wanted to do. It uses CPM, Central Package Management. So you're most of the time in your projects not going to be specifying what languages or like what package versions. You're just going to use the Central Package Management. That does become a problem sometimes when the PowerShell integration by Zon, I don't know how to pronounce his handle, X0N.
Oh, Oshin.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you pronounce his handle, but I know that he's Irish.
I know his nationality. That's not weird.
Yeah,
Sometimes you have to break from the Central Package Management due to, just like we showed earlier with the vulnerabilities, like, some of the collective packages, if anybody's been in DLL hell with some of the Azure identity libraries before, the central one might use outdated versions of things. And so you sometimes have to break from Central Package Management, but most of the time you try to use that in the toolkit. So yeah, I don't think y'all have any questions about the toolkit, but if anybody in the chat does, I'll try and do my best to answer them. So yeah.
I have suggestions about the toolkit that I will give to you and to Aaron. So some of the things I think we are learning from just watching people adopt Aspire and use more of these things. The toolkit is like really, really important to keep high quality. So we always knew this, and it's why we have a toolkit in the first place. Why we have it existing in the first place. But I think like the CI, having something that you can contribute to that you can own. So there's a model toolkit for like having owners that are not Aaron. Aaron is responsible for making sure the quality is high and that the infra is passing, and we help with that. But like for the most part, they're individual owners for each integration. So it's not as though the toolkit team owns the toolkit. It's like individuals who care about the integration own that integration. And Aaron is just a gate for making sure things build and run, and he's kind of the BDFL for that part. And we're gonna probably the toolkit is as old as Aspire from the first version, and it has evolved like since then. And I think we're gonna like over time beef the repo up even more to make it easier to build integrations, to check integrations, and to make it like more reliable to test integrations. We had this big blip, I think, during 13.2, 3. There was a stall, and it was just because like there were so many integrations running every CI, running all the OSs. It was very flaky, which made it hard to contribute. So I think going forward, we are going to help with like making sure when you build an integration, it is easy to work in your integration, easy to make sure tests pass, and easy to make sure that when the CI runs, it won't like break other stuff.
Yeah, that's I experienced that big style on my attempts in the repo. I was having to like, CD into the directories that are my tests or my app hosts to do the build specifically on just that. When you do ship it up to CI, you kick off 122 other pipelines that are, it's a lot, and then intimidating because you don't know if your package is breaking it, and you have to figure out how to dive in and see if yours passed but other people's didn't. It's pretty wild.
So we're gonna help Aaron fix that because we're doing the same thing on the core Aspire repository. It'll only rerun and rebuild what got affected by the changes. And the toolkit is easy because the toolkit has like leaf nodes. The toolkit does not have like the core Aspire hosting, so you don't have to rebuild all the dependencies when nothing changes. So since each of these integrations are pretty independent, we can build infra so you only rerun tests for integrations that matter. So we're gonna do that in the toolkit. I think that will be the biggest help for making things pass and be more reliable. The other thing I think is interesting is like having a solution per integration would help too. Like the mono solution is not fun to open up in anywhere. Or is that the case already? Do we have that already? Do we have like a solution file per, or is it one solution file?
No, it's a shared SLNX, at least as of at least as of a couple of weeks ago when I was doing the TypeScript integration. I definitely there's also it boxes out. So I have 2 Linux laptops. One of them can't play at all because it's just got too little of a hard drive. The other one only has 16 gigs of RAM. So it's real opening up this many projects. And it's a beast. But I don't think you can really solve that necessarily.
Well, I think we could have a model where if you want to open up the entire thing because your machine can handle it and you want to build the whole thing, it's fine. I do think when you're working in a library, you don't need to open up the entire thing. So .NET itself, the runtime, has this model where libraries, you never open up the entire thing because it's like all .NET, right? But you can open up system.blah, and then you get access to the tests and the main project, so you can work really fast and not have to worry about the entire thing. And the CI handles running more stuff.
Yeah, that's all pretty sick. I'm looking forward to that. Here's one that's you got how long until you have to leave, Fowler? Is this the 30-minute warning?
He's like
12,
40.
40 minute, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's one. You guys, this is first a question. How it's clear you guys are like shipping extremely fast. And it's clear that you guys were shipping fast really before LLMs kicked off. And now you're going at like lightning speed. And it's pretty sick. And I think the volume of things you guys have like really butchered. Like, didn't you guys have to roll back something this release?
Yeah, we had a bad one with the new container lifetime stuff.
Lifetime.
But
Yeah.
but for the most part, you guys aren't really like letting through a bunch of crazy bugs that require like. So you guys have figured out how to harness LLMs pretty well, right? Like,
Sure. I will
So-
say, like that was the worst regression I think we've ever had, and I woke up at like 7:00 in the morning, Seattle time, Pacific time, because I was out in SF for build, and I had a message from Patrick on Discord, and he was like, "Hey, this seems bad," and I opened up Teams to like go be like, "Hey guys, this seems bad," and David Nextdown had already fixed it. So that, I mean, he had already bandaged it. I think there were still more fixes that are like rolling through, but that did make me feel better. I will say, like, mastered the art of moving this quickly. Not quite. Like, we had a whole team meeting last night that was just like, how do we deal with RCI and PRs and like
that's
all these things? But we're trying.
the PR part is certainly brutal because the code is so cheap now. Not cheap. I mean, it's expensive to use LLMs, but the code is time-wise much cheaper. And I know you guys have talked about your review bottleneck. Here's a layer I think about. If you guys are moving that fast, and we can come back to the discussion of whether or not you guys always get it right. You guys get it right enough that it's going through. So take the flowers is what I'm trying to say. Because the next step is, do you worry about like leaving the toolkit makers behind if they can't afford to play at the LLM speed? Is that something you guys?
The way I think about it is one of the big benefits. So when we first started Aspire, one concern that I had was it would be impossible to maintain like integrations for software, because like essentially what Aspire is this integration framework where you can describe in some language and a way to describe some piece of software with like type code, right? And I was like, how the hell are we going to maintain changes to like Postgres or Redis or Kafka? When agents start to get really good, I was like, that's the answer. That's our answer. All we have to do is find someone who cares enough about technology X, and they can nerf that thing into like being really good. And it doesn't matter if you use agents or not, our backup will always be if we can use agents to kind of help maintain or help like grow an area, that'll be our escape hatch, because the hardest thing is attention on all these different integrations.
Oh, 100%.
Super hard, right?
Yeah.
So I think the big benefit we get is that since Aspire started like almost 3 years ago now, but it was very different before, we have to catch up to like everything that was there for the last 10 years. Because if you look at the forums and the feedback, people will say things like, just use Terraform, just use Kubernetes, just use Tilt, right? And those ecosystems had 10 years to flourish and grow, like 10 plus years, right? So we get to speed run the building out the infra part. Like once we get the bottom done quickly, I feel as though building new integrations will be easier. So I think in Discord on like the weekend, someone said, I want a C++ integration. Was it you on the
Yeah.
You were like, we need a C++ integration.
I'm just shocked that it seems like you guys are one of the big tool makers for C++.
Yeah. We don't have a thing yet. And the team, my boss runs the languages and platforms team. So like C++, Python, all are under him. So that it was a fun challenge. But what I noticed about the agent building that integration was it was so much easier to build a complete integration because we had figured out deployment and running and debugging and package management. So like we get to speed run and catch up to like other ecosystems because we have agents. And I think it'll make building new integrations easier because we know more, right? At least I'm hoping that that's what ends up happening. And then we get to burn our currently free tokens on helping the toolkit maintain and hopefully not overrunning integration makers. One big concern I have about people that don't have agents, people that do have agents, I made this to our contributing guide on the main repository. I said the team runs these skills on your PRs. So when you're a newcomer and you join and you want to send an easy PR to ease your way into open source, and then these agents just like shit on your code. That I'm worried about that a lot because it feels very like uneven. All right. So we'll watch the feedback and see how it goes. But
So,
I think
I think that whenever I made my PR, that happened to my initial, and that was good because it did catch like several things that I just was ignorant to at that time.
yeah.
And so and then that is almost, I would argue that's almost a courtesy because you're not making them run it first, so they don't have to spend money on it. And there are certain ones in there that you could have probably ignored, but there were plenty in there that I adopted, and it was a good way to keep Aaron's head out of it until. So I liked that use of it. I don't know if y'all set that up or if he did, but getting the agent and the PI to review the PR first was pretty sick.
It's gonna get better, worse. But is that better or worse? It's gonna get worse, better. Like better for the quality of the product overall.
Yeah.
Harder because the bar is just higher. So I guess the thing I worry about is a lot of the times you get drive-by PRs that are like people don't have infinite time, and they care about feature X, and they see a chance to kind of contribute, and they contribute, and it's like not deeply tested or done like super well, but it's a good start, right? And typically the pattern is you get feedback, they make changes, they learn more. I think the what will end up happening is since the bar is this high, you have to be this high to play. It'll be like you haven't done these 20 things, and you can see that as I'm so happy I got this feedback and I can go do it. Or like, holy crap, it's really hard to contribute to Aspire because now I need to do this. I got to do what? I got to add all this stuff. I just want to do my one feature, right? And I haven't thought about this whole thing. So the fact that a human didn't tell you is this like bot that is like, you have made these 50 errors. I worry about just people crashing out and going like, okay, this is too much. Let me just like turn off. If you have an agent, it's super nice. If you don't, and you're the human, you're like, okay, I'm getting beat over the head by this bot telling me that I suck.
Yeah, I feel that because I see what you mean. Like I was pretty confident. I was using an LLM to make it, so I was pretty confident, and I work in small chunks with the agents.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not slinging out 10 at a time. I'm one-on-one, making it
crazy
small chunks.
My husband told this to me and Fowler, and we both were like,
"Look,
what?"
It's just because if I'm gonna be like you said, I'm the owner of that Perl integration.
You are.
And if I'm the owner and it's my free time I have to spend on it, I want to make sure that I know exactly what I'm putting in, and so I worked in small chunks with it, and then that avoids the token maxing, which then is the real cost. And so you can. I think I spent $28. I think in tokens in April to finish it off. I bet if I looked at March, it'd probably be closer to 50. But that's pretty modest compared to the horror stories that people were showing. And I was mostly in Opus 4.6, which was at the time the most expensive because it was such a chatty Cathy. So I see what you mean. Like if the agent's telling you instead of a human, you don't get that mentorship. I think that's something the industry is going to have to broadly struggle with.
I know.
If we're using agents for everything and it's just doing all the stuff, and then you get CI pipelines in your organization with agents, well, then are the developers really growing? That's something I think about a lot too. So at least it's on your brain. That's all I ask. And then I want to talk about the skill, because the Aspire skill, like just I've worked on internal tools teams before, so I like making tools for people, and the skill, that is the coolest thing. I think it's so neat to package it in as a way to not, you don't have to use the agent with it, but it just beats your agent into using it correctly. So why? Let's talk Aspire 13.1 was when that came out. The Aspire agent in it was when it was released broadly. And that at that point, if you notice, I'll pull it up so people can see. It used to just be, in my day, we had one skill. And
Back in my day.
back in my day, 2 months ago, we had one skill. And now you guys have split that and into all of these. So is this 2 or 3 Aspire? So about last month sometime, Maddie made a comment about how you were trying to make the agents more efficient token wise.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about the shift from going, why'd you use the skill? Why'd you put the skill in? Then why'd you split it? Like, can you guys talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. And originally Aspire Agent Init was for an MCP too.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing we did was when you ran the app, we started in an MCP. When you ran the app host, we started an MCP that it could communicate with. But then that was a pain because if the app host wasn't running, everything would throw. VS Code was the main agent thing that most of people were using at that time, but it would throw a bunch of errors like the MCP is unavailable. And we were like, so then we moved that into the CLI. And that worked better, but we were like, why do we have an MCP? Why can't we just query the dashboard for this? Like, why are we writing all these functions and not just calling them from the CLI? And then skills had kind of become a primitive at that point. So we were like, maybe skills will work. So the like crash course on skills for anybody who doesn't know how they work, they're a markdown file, the skill MD markdown file, which has front matter, which is supposed to be a short sentence that the agent scans and loads into context anytime it opens up a new session on that repo. And so it's really about keywords. So the agent says, oh, like, I need to run the app, and it knows to pick up the Aspire skill. And then skills can have references, which are within the skill. We say, if you are doing this specific thing, go read this extra stuff. And then we also have multiple skills, and all of our skills have multiple references. And the reason you do that is because it is like a, oh my God, what is the word I'm looking for?
Dispatch token. You wrote.
You discover it as you need it. Like you don't get everything. Yes, progressive disclosure. Jesus, thank you. And so that has been the move with skills. And so when we moved things into their own repo, there were a couple reasons. One of them is that now you can install it as like one plugin globally or free repo or whatever, and we can push skill updates whenever.
Yes.
The Aspire CLI will pull skills based on the version of the Aspire CLI. So, because we can't like security stuff, but that means you get the latest, up to date with that release skill, but we can kind of experiment now with skills on the side.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty good, Maddie. You said stuff once, by the way.
Thank you. Oh, only one. Hey, did you watch our build talk?
Yeah. I said stuff once to it. I know.
You said things.
I said things.
Yeah, you go in like deployment things, and I was like,
impossible.
Mom and dad are fighting, guys.
It's because Damien isn't here. I can't fight with him.
It's true. It's true. Anyways, yeah, that's my skill spiel, but they have been amazing.
They really have. I liked the split up. I think the reason I like them so much is they limit how many tokens you're sending every request. And if like, let's say you use the skill and you're only talking about something with a C# app host and resource management. Well, these are the only 3 that will get loaded into the context. It's just pretty sick. Big flowers for that. I think that's
and in 13.4, we James on our team, JNK, actually moved the search and filter stuff. Oh, I said stuff. The search and filter logic for logs and OTel in the CLI to the actual CLI and dashboard side, instead of us pulling it all in and then the agent having to grep through it, which not only means that we can build a better search and filter experience, but also that the agent doesn't have to load everything into memory if it can't find what it needs to grep. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. So that was a good little quick and dirty saver.
So like one thing to add just to give people their flowers, Shane Boyer and David Pine.
Yes, Pine mentioned
making the skills repo. So the skills repo is a place where you can install the skill directly into your coding agent globally. And then we have the agent init, which is like a project-centric model that says, when you're in the flow of making a new Aspire project or trying to Aspirify your current project, we can dump stuff directly into your current folder that helps you, right? So per repo versus like a global install. And David Pine actually split the skills out into skills and references. I think Maddie had the first change where she made the Aspirify skill.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, by the way, because like that thing is like knowledge and pain from Aspire Fridays.
Yes.
All in like just Markdown, right?
Yes.
We're gonna set up evals. So the things you keep hearing about when you do anything to do with agents is, how do you know that changing the Markdown is gonna improve the experience? We have no freaking idea.
No idea.
We were winging it. We just use the agent to write the skill, and then we try it 4 times, and they'd be like, that seems better. So we're getting more rigor around the skills repo. Will have like actual evals that run whenever a change happens. And we'll have a set of tests that say, did Aspirification get better or worse based on this PR? With the move to Markdown and English, everything just turns into like degrees. There's no assert true or false. It turns into like, is this better or worse?
Is closer or further?
Is it closer or further? It made me realize that, like, I guess the baby example of this, if you never did any sort of ML before, is like search. So you want to make sure that when you tweak the search algorithm, that the results are better. But what do you assert? Like, there's infinite search terms. There's infinite things.
Hey, I'm not an ML guy, so that's all just Matt.
It's Matt, right?
Trust them.
Yeah. Trust the search engine. Yeah, so it's very similar. Like, how do you? Yeah, it's harder or colder. How do you make sure that when I search for this term, that you didn't make this other term worse? So it's similar things here. Yeah.
I don't even want to know. So you mentioned build. I want to note the talk. Chet Husk did a talk about the .NET Up.
DNUp.
Oh, DNUp is so good. Yeah.
Because I just recently got into Linux like a few months ago. I hate installing .NET on I think it's like a Linux Mint is, somebody's going to stab me in the comments, but I think it's like an Ubuntu based thing, just so it's a .deb. I hated setting it up. It was miserable, but that was my favorite. No offense to y'all. That was my favorite build talk.
That's fine.
That's fine.
I get it. Our session, so, because it's build and because it's, that session, Fowler and I did a live stream. They had this like booth on the floor where people live streamed for like an hour and a half at a time. And we were signed up to do a stream right before our session. And the demo was started to be built the night before. Mm-hmm. And so we spent that entire stream building out the demo, which was very fun. And Fowler and I were like on stage bickering about the flow as we were getting set up. So the slides, Beth did the slides for us. They're gorgeous. You can get them online. They're the same slides we use for like the regular intro deck, everything. But the slides were like, cool, we'll do that. We'll do 10 minutes on the slides and we'll go to the demo. And then I was like, okay, so the first thing you should do is Aspire start. And Fowler was like, no, I'm going to explain the app. And I was like, no. And then I was like, well, you're going to show the hosted agents thing, right? And he was like, no. I did it in TypeScript. I go, why isn't this Python? So we're spinning up agents like on stage half an hour before this talk starts. Like, can we get this to work like real quick? And it ended up going fine. Someone said it's clear they really like working with each other in the talk feedback. And I was like, that's so sweet.
The craziest thing that I think happened was the night before, I was making the agent work. Like, the app was an agent that used the Copilot SDK. Mm-hmm. So I said, hey, make this agent use the Copilot SDK to do this inference. And I think in our like live booth thing, whatever it was called, I was checking the code and I was like, it didn't do it, but it said it did. Then I was like, hey, did you add the code to make the agent do stuff? And it said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I didn't do it. And I was like,
it was going for bingo.
What do you mean you didn't do it? That's what I'm demoing this. It just blocked it out. It just made like a fake provider. It just returned like.
No, he texted me. He was like, "I'm done with this for tonight. I'll fix it in the morning." It's like, oh my god. Oh, Sanderson's Vibe OS demo was also awesome. Yeah, that was
crazy.
Agreed. That was a fun trip down memory lane.
So For those of you who don't know what .NET Up is, it is like a standalone CLI for updating .NET, updating and managing .NET installs like for a machine. And which is great for Linux and Mac. Like I use Homebrew, even though it's not an officially supported thing, but someone keeps it up to date and it's good. But I switched over to .NET Up the other day and it worked. It like just worked. And I was like, damn.
Do you know why that was made? Because
managing global Visual Studio .NET installs on Windows is a nightmare.
It was because of on Linux, the package maintainers put .NET in like apt and what's the other one? The other one's can't remember the names, but they're in there.
Fuck. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Those but they're not the latest, right? And they're never always up to date because they pull and they build .NET themselves and put it in the package manager. So
yeah,
getting on Linux and getting the highest version is always like a whole choose your own adventure style problem.
It's a quest. Every time.
A quest. From what Zelda?
Let's go Link to the Past if we're picking.
That is the best one.
Did you see his tweet this morning?
That's the best one.
What?
Fowler literally tweeted this morning last night. He was like, I replay Link to the Past every single summer. I'm starting it again.
Hey, that's a really good one. The music slaps.
It does slap.
Love it.
I will say, like, I never played Majora's Mask growing up, and I played it as like a cognizant adult. And I was like, damn, I wish I played this as a kid because that one's crazy.
You didn't know, because if you played it as a kid, you got the horrors.
Right. So that's why I didn't play it, because it was like scary to me. So I was like,
I cut my teeth on 1 and 2 for the NES. And Link to the Past was in the Game Boy Link's Awakening. All 4 of those were like my formatives. And then I kind of quit after Majora's Mask. Because I became a computer gamer and not a console
player.
Wait,
you quit and didn't come back?
Yeah, I haven't played Wind Waker. I haven't played like any of them.
So I skipped.
To my defense, I don't enjoy when games genre swap. And I consider the move to 3D too much of a genre swap.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey. Like I'm with you. I skipped like so by then I was probably like almost in college, but like I skipped GameCube completely. I didn't play any of the GameCube Zeldas. Yeah. But then like Switch and Breath of the Wild had so much like hype. I hadn't played it for like the first year. Then I played it on vacation like 2 years ago, and I didn't do any coding. It was I would get up in the morning, like 7 a.m. and just start.
You didn't even make an agent do anything?
This is before agents. This was
like 2019.
I was gliding through Hyrule. Like it was just so like, oh my god.
So I ended up having a daughter that got hooked on like Mega Man and Final Fantasy games. So at some point, I will revisit those, I'm sure. So I'll have a full circle moment where I'll come back and play the Wind Wakers. But I did bail on that series after Link to the Past, or Ocarina of Time, really.
Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. I'm so excited for that remake, dude.
I bought a PS5 like because of the Final Fantasy VII like remake.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I just went to Target and I just bought a PS5 randomly, like I think a couple of years ago, and I was like, "What do this?" I never played it.
Dude, one of the coolest things about having a little video game daughter is instead of watching TV, she watches speed runs or playthroughs.
So good.
We just got to start. We finished like Final Fantasy VI playthroughs, and we're like halfway through the game ourselves. And she is now wanting to see Final Fantasy VII, and so I get to rewatch that with her. It's so fun. And on road trips, we're listening to like the Final Fantasy VI soundtrack instead of music. So
smooth the groove.
My poor wife.
God, that's a dream. I remember growing up, like my mom would not beat for the levels for us for anything. Like she would make us sit in, like, without our thumbs, and I would play like NHL 95 and get my ass kicked. And like Spyro and like Crash, I spent so long playing, and they just announced a new Spyro game, and I like lost my mind, and I was like, and then a bunch of people
it's taking me back.
Yeah, I was like, eh? Oh, Fowler, we could totally do an N64 emulator.
Look, no, what I want y'all to do is flesh out .NET Framework support so that the
No.
monogame people can hook in, because they're still in framework, if I remember.
Is mono game on original mono and not on like mono, the new
Ooh,
mono?
hey, I'm an armchair game dev, as in I don't do
Oh, yeah.
but I know that they are using .NET Framework, I think, in their core. I think
Yeah.
they're on a long-term migration to .NET Core,
Yeah.
but I don't think they're anywhere near it. And so if y'all can get framework support, you could make an agent make a video game, right?
You gotta.
Concerned Ape is on the core mono game stuff. So
Yeah.
with Haunted Chocolatier, because he was actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this. The Stardew Valley guy / Haunted Chocolatier guy uses .NET, and he has talked to folks on the team about various .NET isms. Not me. They haven't pulled me into a meeting. Is it because I would literally froth at the mouth? Probably, but still kind of rude. I would be like, "Do you use Aspire for Haunted Chocolatier? Do you use Aspire?"
I mean, so we had this discussion like a lot, and initially in the very beginning, and like how much .NET Framework do we support, or how much would even work? A little bit work.
I know it. I know. Brownfield being what it is, there's plenty of companies that just can't just get the clearance to, like, their devs can't migrate, right? Like,
Yeah.
So some people are trapped out of the box.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know enough about the internals to know where the line is what could port back.
I'm pretty happy that we didn't do it as a focus area initially, because it would have, I think, clouded our judgment around supporting every language and how that has to work. I think so. We have this effort coming up, which is it's called Project Resource V2, and it's basically making .NET work like every other integration, because we added .NET first.
Yeah,
it was built for VS in VS. Then Maddie joined the team and said, "Build a CLI," and we were like, "No." We did it anyway, and she was right. And then, so then we built JavaScript.
All right, clip that. What time is it? 1 hour, 39 minutes into the stream. She was right. Clip it. Okay.
Clip it, ship it.
A little bit right. So then now we have built enough language support that I think we could go back and say, like, okay, is there a way to build .NET Framework support that feels like native, that isn't completely coupled to like wherever it was in the very beginning? But I will say, .NET Framework being tied to Windows and VS, it makes it really hard to build a DevX that's not that, right?
Yeah.
Like, you could boot IS Express separately and make debugging work and stuff, but that, like, talk about brownfield, that code itself is brownfield. That is like the oldest code in VS that's like making that work.
Yeah, that it's always a trip when you .NET build something and you forget that you're in a 4.7.2 and you're like, oh,
Oops.
And then MS build is hidden behind the VS install. It's not on path, so you're not command lining anything on that. So I did have on my questions list. You guys are doing that Project Resource V2. You've seen in the Discord, people are asking about the Postgres. Like, when, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, once you get your foundation set and caught up, then you think you might, when would you like to revisit some of those early integrations? Like
Maddie actually brought this up like this week. She said we should go back over the old integrations and figure out how to upgrade them. Then we have so many new features.
Yeah.
How can we use the integration service and stuff that existed a year before the integration service did? Like, that was just part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the ones that beats my ass every time is, I do not enjoy, and it may not be changeable. This may be something that's stuck. Where is it at? Doop, doop. And Slikens, Stephen, he was mentioning this in the Discord. The Postgres. I do not like that I can't with init files on a database. I want the database to have a migration. And I also hate that basically if I don't use this, it's pain. If I don't use Postgres as my database name, it's pain. You have to like, there's something smells with the way that Postgres is set up, and it might be because of how Postgres works in the back end. I'm not sure, but those two things are like complaints I have, and they kind of rhyme with the guy is it Slikens that's doing the glitch tip like Keycloak stuff,
Yeah.
talking about how you need the thing to spin up first to get something out of it. Like, I think it's that same type of issue here with Postgres. So when talk about those.
So really early on in the spot, so these integrations were the first ones, Postgres and Redis, and their containers. And the question, we didn't have as a well fleshed out model as we have now for like deployment and running, and even eventing came way after having these features. So there's this split between things that happen in the app host and then things that happen in the container that are transferable. So one thing you can say is, like, when you use Aspire and you use the integration for Postgres, we can run a bunch of code in the app host to do stuff like migrations, database creation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That'll work fine until you do deployment. And before, we didn't have a model for running arbitrary code during deployment. So we didn't have a model for saying, create a database or run migrations or run this, or even run this script during deploy. Now we have that. So I think we could go back over some of these things and figure out what does it mean to have this work end to end. But then it gets hard if you talk about any environment. If you're deploying to Azure, does your CI/CD pipeline have access to the database?
Yep.
Most don't. The thing is in the firewall, like VNet somewhere. So I think we need to go over all the integrations and figure out how much time we spend making each of those work end to end for each scenario, or if we say, the toolkit can extend this and do other stuff now. So I think what you mentioned is a good one. This feels like going back over integrations and rounding out features. Not that we have more stuff in the app host.
Yeah,
this is a good roadmap thing to go do and figure out which ones we should improve.
Yeah, and then I know that I use it at work a little bit sometimes, but the SQL one, it currently only supports adding unless you go to the extensions in the toolkit, but they have like a with create script instead of the file-based migrations. Yeah. So when what are you going to make people write a 4,000 line script?
Yes, SQL script. Yeah, I think
because a lot of people would use some sort of migration framework, Flyway or EF.
Flyway,
yeah.
DB up. Yeah. I think this comes down to we early on didn't want to build features in the app host for these things, so we exposed wherever the container exposed as a native feature, and they're gross to use, and they don't compose, because when you use the database files feature to do database creation, it works in a very specific way, and you got to put it over here, and it has to have this format. But it's not a thing that we can. But we don't make that work. We don't do extra to make it work well or work at all, outside of just that container. So I think the struggle here is, how do we either advertise or expose things that are Aspire native versus being part of whatever that system supports? Yeah. I think people feel the niceties of with reference, add this, add that, join things here, and it just works. And it's that only works because the container support. Yeah.
So it sounds like there's a class of migrations that will get some extra, or integrations that'll get some extra love eventually.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I just put that on our list for next week, Fowler, to add to the whiteboard of things.
Yeah, but I do prefer the model where people who are in love with integrations or technologies on the toolkit is a much better model for this, just because, and for core things like Postgres, I think it is good for us to do it. But I do think for pick a database that is not used by everyone. I don't know, probably some new fangled DB that people love and use. Yeah. That should follow whatever model we invent from from Aspire hosting, but I will say it is bidirectional. Like whatever gets invented in the toolkit sometimes comes back into hosting as
Yeah,
well.
you guys just pulled Go out of the toolkit.
Go and Bun.
Java. Oh, Bun.
Open and Java's next.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Neo4j. So we don't have Neo4j in the core. That could be in the toolkit, and it would be good if the people that knew Neo4j well, I like created a baseline template for what it should be in Aspire, and then there's like when you go all the way, when you want to expose arbitrary features or say something like I'm a Neo4j expert, it should have this feature. Like we literally, I don't say we don't care, but we don't care about.
You don't know. Like
we don't know. Yeah, exactly. We just we're not gonna be the experts for every integration. So that earlier on, people would say, how could you not expose this Cosmos DB feature that everyone uses in my company? It's like, well, the Cosmos DB team, they're going to own their integration because they want to expose all these things to you, right?
Yeah.
So we had to bootstrap the ecosystem, but we do not want to own all the integrations for like every piece of software on the planet. We really want like users to my phone going crazy. We want everyone to feel like the people who are interested in that piece of software, they get together and they like make it really good.
Yeah.
It's a subreddit. Go into Postgres subreddit and like make it amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see.
Oh my God. Yeah, you have like 5 to 7 more Fowler minutes, so keep questioning.
When are y'all going to leave David alone so he can work on the debugging?
Oh yeah.
We can't.
I need it.
We actually just last night at like 9 p.m. might have derailed him again.
How
I'll
dare
tell you
you?
about that next week, David.
I got a super nice email
What?
with David and Carol who work on DCP and all. They work on all of the like. They work on everything, but they spend a lot of time working on the container runtime integration, and there are some big features, including debugging, including terminal support that Mitch just added, including supporting WSL containers. That's coming too. So like they have this big backlog of things to work on. We're trying to figure out sequencing which order do we do them in.
Yeah.
And then I'll just say like just spin up 4 sessions in your Copilot app and like just get it done by next week.
Yeah, that's how it works. That's how it works.
That's how software's built. No. I have 10 open and they're working on things as we speak. I'm just nudging it forward. So yeah, I think the team, so we had a big meeting yesterday about how we're gonna work with agents and not die magic request. And one of the things we spoke about was making incremental progress for features, getting better at shipping things behind feature flags and at experiments and doing it over releases, because it's really hard to big bang features. Like,
yes,
I want to make sure we support containers in WSLC, and it's like, okay, that is not going to be a one-shot bang and it just works. We're going to find all kinds of bugs with this problem, right? So we are getting better at checking in changes that will be the first cut, but it won't be in your face, and it will be an experiment, and then you can turn it on with a feature flag. And then I think once we do that, debugging will come slowly and over a couple releases. So I think that's our new pattern for like getting these things out in your hands, but not done until it's done. Alex had a good question.
What is the plan to promote features beyond experimental? Well,
I have this issue that I did because of this problem. Let me find it. Yeah, so we don't have a good process today for this, but I think we have to get clean. Right now it piles. It just piles up.
yeah.
And we haven't done a good job like
In the pre-agent days, we had Eric go through and take like notes for a little bit and started and was like, God, we have so many things in here.
Yeah. And to be fair, like we use this thing as a hammer to give ourselves permission to like break you. And
yeah,
when you're angry at us, we'll just say like this thing was an experiment. So that was how we held on to it initially. But I think there's a lot of stable APIs that we can promote now that are stable. That issue shows that we just like left things experimental for a while, and we're gonna go through and make that not experimental anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think the interaction service we just took off experimental on finally, right? So in Maine.
We did.
Yeah. Finally. Graduate. Experimental Aspire APIs. I love it. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. What's next?
No, so you guys have you guys just made commands like the dashboard commands so you can like set up and tear down things? I have not gotten to play with that yet because I'm still waiting to get the TypeScript support PR finished, and so like I'm behind daily, but that is an exciting thing. So talk about those if you can.
Yeah.
Because those are pretty sick.
Yeah, commands started off as like a really interesting, it's like mini DevOps. It's like, let me add some buttons that are domain specific for my app in the dashboard and app host. They got, I would say, completed in the last release. They're like fully featured now, where commands can have arguments and you can kind of build arbitrary things that show up in that list of in the dashboard. But it also works via the CLI as well and the extension. So you can do Aspire resource name, command name, and have it like run stuff, and you can pass arguments. That rounds out the feature in a way where the agent can use it, a human can use it from the command line, and you can use it in the dashboard. So it's a super nice, like, rounded out thing. On top of that, we plan to build a bunch more, I don't want to say things and stuff. We're going to build a lot more features on commands than we did before. So for example, we were discussing debug attach and detach as a command that lights up on things that have debuggers. And that was possible before, but it wouldn't have been doable by like the extension or by it would have been hard coded. So now we have this generic feature that lets you run arbitrary code on a resource, given that context. And you can make it have an icon and pop up in the dashboard and make it show up in the command line. So it kind of gives you this platform feature to invoke arbitrary code from many places. Yeah,
I didn't realize y'all were thinking about like an attach. That's pretty sick.
Oh, the next round of features, once we unlock some of the core platform, things are going to be like just never before seen.
Avant-garde.
Exactly. And it's like we're saying, I think we have to catch up to tools that have been doing this for 10 years. Like VS Code has a big set of extensions that were just built up over time. I look at our model as integrations are the equivalent of those extensions. And before they could have only done like one thing. Now they can have like deployment behavior, like commands, more UX in the dashboard, and they'll get more full featured as we build more stuff. So
amazing.
Yeah, what is Aspire? We don't know.
What is Aspire this week, you mean?
Yeah. It's an agent-ready tool for building, debugging, and deploying distributed apps. Ooh, I think that's the sentence. I don't remember.
my ChatGPT PM. I sent Maddie a document that she was impressed with.
It was actually good. For a long time, he jokes when I don't talk to him enough. He goes to his LLM PM, or when he's disagreeing with me. And so usually he sends me stuff from his LLM PM, and it is like the just most crap ever. And he sent one yesterday, and it was, first of all, it was only like 2 pages. It was well articulated. There weren't M dashes and weird like enter, but that's not true. Enter. Like none of that. And it actually was a really good synopsis of like positioning. Oh my God. Are your ears burning?
Uh-oh.
Hi, y'all.
Synopsis positioning Aspire for once. And I actually really liked it. Damien, the original LLM PM, even liked it.
He did. I was shocked.
Omnideath, go back to your editor just real quick.
Oh, you want to make him cry?
Just real quick.
I'm gonna roast it.
What do you think, Damo?
It's very Commodore 64 kind of era vibes.
I'll take it. You could have said worse.
It's like I'm not. It's fine. Like I mean, mostly honestly the most offensive part is the italics on the parameter names. That's what actually my eyes get drawn to.
Show him
Italics.
the zero. Show him the zero. The zero is amazing.
Oh yeah, dude, you want S's in your zeros?
No, I like that. I hand draw zeros with the slash through them and the sevens with the slash through them. I don't know where I developed that habit, but I do. So yeah, I'm a big fan of digits looking like that.
Yes, me too.
All right, I'm going on a Twitter space now. I might be back.
Okay, we'll see you.
Later, Tater.
Like we really haven't like broken anything to smithereens yet, Damien. We've actually been doing
No.
pretty well. Pearl,
Well, I mean, I would have been hopeless because I know literally nothing about Perl. I probably
That's
couldn't
fine.
have even guessed that the file extension was PL.
no.
So,
I learned that the way that you declare variables are my and r, and that's how you scope them. Like my
that's very
variable, R variable.
VB-esque.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a little, but at least it wears clothes because VB doesn't have semicolons, does it?
Right. No.
No. So we wear clothes in Perl. That's
Okay.
that's for sure. But yeah, no, I was mostly just using this as like a you guys had Rich or Rick on last, the guy who was supposed to give you guys.
Rob
Rob.
Rich. Yeah.
Yeah, he had 2 R names.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've just been using it to interview basically.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
The Perl
No, we
part.
did some community toolkit. We're all pleasantly surprised by the Perl integration.
Okay.
Mitch even said, "Damn, this is pretty nice." So
I told you I'm trying to make it match first class support, but it'll take a while. But
we'll get there.
I'll get there.
Yeah.
And then I'll
Very
be the
cool.
only one that uses it, and that will be cool.
Yeah. We were just
So-
talking about bringing up like the original integrations up with new APIs we have. So like the container file stuff and
Right.
like Postgres is a good example. And then also not or graduating things out of experimental because there are so many of those.
Yeah, this is one of the things we have opportunity to improve regarding having added so many features in what seems like a short period of time, going back and like basically revisiting the original integrations with a totally clean sheet in some cases like would be beneficial. Like I think we could make some real improvements in places. We said the same thing when we did the interaction service. And then even then, I don't think we've really, and commands and stuff, like there's always more we could do, right?
Yeah, one of the ones we just talked about was the database integrations and like in particular, my particular quibble with the Postgres one is I'd like with init files on the database and maybe in addition to the server, because to me, that's what makes sense. You're running migrations usually or at least in my head, I'm running them on a database, not on a server. So anyway, not being able to with init files on a database was a particular pain point for me. And then I'm just ignorant to how it works, but like the key cloak and how you have to spin parts of it up. So Slikens was talking in the Discord. I wanted to get him.
You just invoked his name straight up.
Got him.
Oh my God.
I summoned him. But he's having a problem with like deployments and like how you have to kind of 2-tier them. You have to like redo it after you get the value the first time. Is there something you guys can do? I know Fowler mentioned in his answer a little bit, but can you talk a little bit about the pain of needing something that's deployed first? Is there a way to like stage your deployments so they go in groups and can?
So the deployment pipeline, this was kind of the big thing that happened last year. Fowler earlier in the year did a bunch of experiments with this realization of like, how can you take what is ultimately a static description of your application model, which is built after running procedural code. You then have this static object model, and then you want to treat it like a graph and then say, okay, let me break it apart so that I can logically group things by what they depend on. And then you can then turn that into a set of deployment stages. So it actually does that now. So the Aspire deploy does this behind the scenes, right? That was kind of a key innovation, which, honestly, every deployment technology has to do this, right? You have to reason about what depends on what. And so you can materialize state and then flow that to the next stage, which is what you're asking about. So at the moment, that is constraints the wrong word, but that's applied to a single deployment. So you say Aspire deploy, and it pulls the parts and figures out what depends on what, using this thing in the background kind of called Aspire pipelines. And that's the extensibility point that allows you to plug in custom steps into that pipeline, and you can declare dependencies a little bit like MS Build or other things where you say, I depend on this target and so on. And then the engine figures out what to run in what order. So it does that, but it still is one deployment, right? It's still one logical thing. The reality is in the real world, in real apps, you very often, especially with data, have to do multi-phase deployments where, say, you're doing software development in like a sprint cycle. We used to do, back when I did this for a living, we would have rules that were like, like whenever we roll out a schema change, you don't actually use the schema change in the same version that you roll the schema change out in. So you roll a schema change out in a compatible way so that you can apply the schema update while the app is still running the old version. And then in the next sprint, you would then deploy the new version of the app that can deal with or use the new schema. And then the sprint after that is when you would remove the old schema bits and do the data migration and then apply the constraints. So now that you know the app will honor those constraints. And that's always manual. And like, again, I've been out of the game for 16 years now. So I don't know if I don't even know if there are products in the market that try to solve that problem specifically when it comes to like that type of stateful migration over time. But things like EF, right? They use migrations as the way to do that, but they still don't help you at the higher level construct of like, you have to control what's in a given migration to make sure you can run the migration in such a way that your app doesn't break as soon as the migration's applied. You have to manually decide what schema change is safe to apply this week versus next week when I've rolled out more code changes. Honestly, I don't see us solving that. I don't think that's the job of Aspire to solve that problem. I think software architecture and deployment lifecycle decisions and things is just something that exists in apps, and it's very app specific, because depending on how you design your data architecture, you can make trade-offs one way or the other, right? As to how strict your rollout has to be. So yeah, I don't know. It's just, like I said, we can do the single kind of deployment. We do ordering, but if you need to do like, I'm going to do an Aspire deploy of this version of the code base, and then I'm going to do an Aspire deploy of another version of the code base, we have nothing that kind of tracks state across those two things right now.
Yeah, I think his specific quibble is for Keycloak. You got to spin up a realm and something else, and then I think you guys did what is it, string expressions or whatever to kind of do this for parameters. But something like that for resources.
So you could definitely do it with the pipeline step. So you could absolutely have a custom pipeline step, and we could even have this be part of something like the Keycloak integration that says if you enable Realm deployment, there would be a pipeline step that runs after the actual Keycloak server deployment. And then you'd want it to be idempotent, right? So you'd want that step to be able to say, does the Realm exist? Oh, yes, it does. I have to know what, because I don't want to change it. But if it doesn't exist, I want to bootstrap it, for you. Yeah. That is absolutely something we could do. But thinking through the next level of challenge is things like, well, okay, where is that running? Like, who's actually physically running that pipeline step? Because permissions become a problem. Like if you're going to deploy a realm, you have to be an admin. So if you're doing it via their API, for example, if that's running from your CI server, does your CI server have admin permissions to like your production environment? Probably not. You'd probably go through some other mechanism. But it depends. Again, there's no wrong or right answer really. It's like a lot of this is just, it depends. But in the case of the EF stuff, like I think we added support for generating bundles. So they have this idea where they build a migration into an exe. That's the output of CI. And then your deployment engine or pipeline takes that exe as an asset and then runs that in an environment that has permissions to actually affect the database. And like, you got to be really careful with that stuff. And like, I mean, it's funny because like, especially recently, tangent, thinking about the decades that we've gone through in this industry and how, we had that phase where everyone was learning about CI and CD in the sort of mid 2000s, early 2000s to the end of the 2000s. CI CD became a big part of our industry. And there was a big push to like get CI and CD set up for people. And now in the world that we live in, security is a huge talking point. And in a lot of cases, CI/CD is actually challenging from a security point of view, because now there's just one gate often. Like if you can get source in, you can get stuff into prod because we've got CI/CD set up. So like the whole CI/CD pipeline now is being rethought with a lot more rigor and things like provenance checking and assertions and all those type of things at different phases, so that you can have layers of defense against things like supply chain attacks or even just mistakes.
Yeah, aren't CI/CD pipelines how some tokens have been stolen?
Right, exactly. And that's one of the biggest vectors, is that people unfortunately keep high privilege tokens around for longer than perhaps they should. Because one of the biggest mitigations of any of this type of thing is just use the lowest privilege token you can, lowest privilege credential you can, and only keep it around and valid for as short a period as you can. Yes. But like a lot of things in security, the friction with that is that, well, that's harder than just having an account that can do everything, right? And just knowing that it works, right? And so more moving pieces means more things can go wrong. But yeah, like this year alone, we've seen so many compromises of popular packages because of various versions of what we just talked about, where and a lot of the time it's not even in your CI/CD pipeline, it's your dev box. So a person on the team who is highly privileged, even if they have JIT, just in time privileges, they may just have a token lying around on disk somewhere or in the environment variable that is now available to anything that gets run. And as we all know, you do an npm restore or a NuGet restore, you're basically just running random code, right? That is the reality when you do that. And so you have to be very mindful these days. It's just like, I think there's very much a tension between slowing down again to try and make sure that these things are mitigated as best they can be, but that's pushing against this tension of, we have agents, we can go faster, we can do more with less, and that'll be a constant struggle, I think, for a while.
Yeah, agree on that. And we did talk a little bit about the speed at which you guys can move now with LLMs is pretty wild. It creates the bottleneck of PRs. I still don't know how we're ever gonna solve that, because it's so. It's so cheap time wise to make changes and features added and stuff. Especially with Fowler mentioned how you guys are focusing on trying to figure out how to help the CI/CD pipelines get bolstered with agents to do some of the review steps before eyes get on it.
Yeah.
And that was interesting because he was talking about it in the context of if that's, the old days, you'd have a senior sit down and give feedback to a junior, they'd grow. Is it a turnoff if the LLM's doing that feedback and giving you a mountain of stuff to work on? Right. That was a good discussion he mentioned when you weren't here.
Yeah. So. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that for me, the biggest opportunity there seems to just be using automation and LLMs to help remove friction, so that walking up to something and doing verification in whatever mode that is, whether it's code review or user experience review or like trying out the app and looking for bugs or whatever, just remove as much possible friction between I need to start this task and I'm doing the task. And that's like things like our PR review, our PR builds, right? So we send a PR, we get a script generated that makes it like one shot to install that build completely on your local machine so you can try it out. But then also having the PR review automatically run. So along with that, you've got an initial report of like all the brain dead stuff. Like, does it just like even work? Because like even running the script and waiting a couple of minutes for it to install the build and then you going to do it and then failing in the first 10 seconds, that's frustrating, right? And so let's automate that part to make sure that it at least mostly works. And then leave the taste kind of stuff to the humans, right? The experience driven stuff. And I'm sure that gap will continue to change and like stretch, and we'll figure out ways to make agents just better and better at automating stuff that's more nuanced. That's, I think, is what we're all learning right now.
Yeah, and I will revisit a question I already asked just because I'm curious if your answer will be different. So various language integrations with, let's talk the Python one. It has like package manager is like an Aspire concern. You need to specify your package manager.
Yep.
So they do the UVcorn and pip, I think, are the two. So in Perl, I remember Fowler one time ribbed me about explicitly adding packages. And I'm curious, do you see that as too granular? Do you think that's worthwhile to add, or would you prefer that not be an Aspire concern?
My knee jerk is I don't want that in Aspire, but I need to. I'll just underline that with or qualify that with. Again, I know nothing about Perl. I don't know what's idiomatic in Perl. If it looks like any other, like a TypeScript developer or a Python developer, and you manage dependencies and packages in broad strokes similar ways, then this feels far too granular. Like I don't really want Aspire to own the concept of dependencies. But, and this is where, like, even as I'm just thinking about it while saying it, I can see it. One of the things we keep touting about Aspire is the more we know about your application model, the more we can do for you. And, you know, we just talked about supply chain attacks and mitigations and things. And one of the things is, well, if you know your dependencies, you can build things like SBOMs, like software bill of materials, so that you can, we now know not just what your app is from a unit, it's a container and it's written in Perl, but it has these dependencies. And you could imagine, you could certainly invent features that we could now automate more stuff for you because we know that. Now, the flip side to that, though, is that that's true, maybe, but that doesn't mean you have to specify each package dependency with an API in Aspire. We could just go and read the package file, which I'm assuming in Perl there's some format of how you specify.
Yeah, and that's actually something I didn't know about until I started doing the integration, because I've always just set up the machine to have the libs it needed manually with, you know. And so one of the reasons I think it might be useful to elevate that stuff is, you know, the back in the day, one of the slogans was, you know, just run it on your box and it just works.
Yep.
Well, if you don't specify the packages, how does the developer know, especially in a technology they're not familiar with?
Yeah, absolutely. So that, I mean, I think that it sounds like from what you're saying that these are more like global prerequisites, these packages, rather than
could be, you can make them local. So I kind of fleshed it out. I fleshed it out to where you can add a .with local lib to choose not to do it globally. And, you know, Perl does have a CPAN file, which is equivalent to like your package.json.
Okay.
And it does have like a CPAN snapshot instead of a package lock. So you can do it like fully modern. And I've got several examples in my repo about the various ways to do it. But if, you know, a lot of times you just have a couple of packages in that script. And if you want to isolate it, you're making a deploy locally, might be useful. That's why I elevated them out. And then I found out I'm the only integration, I think, doing that. So I was like,
like, I mean, it sounds equivalent to in old school .NET. We didn't have a package manager or really a mechanism for distributing dependencies. You had the GAC and it was machine wide. And the way that you got dependencies, if they weren't just loose assemblies, was you installed them in the GAC. And that really was about extending the .NET framework itself, in one of a better analogy. But then they become machine level dependencies. So you could imagine in an alternate universe where .NET framework was still like what we were basing like the leading .NET stuff on, you could or there was a .NET framework integration, you could have like with GAC dependency or something, and you would put in like so I could totally kind of understand like where that comes from. But I think most people who lived through those times, or still do, would advocate that it's the modern way with like a package manager where you specify at the project level or the solution level what your packages are and the versions, and you can properly isolate and not collide, is a much more productive and easier to manage system.
Way better.
But one thing we do keep low-key debating on the Aspire team is, should these integrations go all the way to acquiring the language stack itself? So like, if
you rewatch, that's one of the questions I had, was because I struggled when I made this with whether or not to go ahead and install the dependencies that are there. And my initial PR had a couple where I did that. And then I pulled it back because I didn't want to be messing with people's machines. But this
is the thing.
And but I mean, every team I've ever been on, when you onboard, they've got a script that you're going to run and you're going to do all the, you know. So why not do it with us?
I think we're all kind of allergic to machine affecting stuff. That's why there's like containers and packages at the project level, and things all seem like fair games. Like, I'm inside the repo, of course it's going to pull down stuff for the scope of that repo, but it feels weird to have something completely automatically like affect my machine by installing something globally. But it also sucks that I have to go and do a bunch of stuff manually or run a script before I can, so I totally get that tension. And I think honestly, it'll just be someone will do it first in terms of Aspire. one hosting integration, whether it's one that we own or someone in the community, will make the jump and figure out a model that people go, oh, actually, this is pretty good. I like this. Because the other problem is that there isn't one universal way to install global dependencies. If you're on Windows, you might use Winget. You might download a zip. You might download an MSI. You might have some other thing, right? You might use Chocolatey. And so what would we use as the mechanism? So do we separate declaring your dependencies that you need and the installation mechanism and make them like separate things? So you can say, I need Perl, but I'm going to install it with Chocolatey, right? Rather than Winget, right? So just like we've done, like you said, with you get to choose Uvicorn, or you get to choose a different environment manager, right? So
and one of the ways I wanted to do it that wasn't available at the time was, the interaction service can surface and tell you, it'll allow you to put a URL in there.
Yep.
But I wanted to like provide a UI widget to, would you like to install it?
I think that's the right approach.
And then you would click a button, but that wasn't there at the time.
Right. So when I did the DevTunnels integration, it was very similar. So the DevTunnels integration has a dependency on the DevTunnel CLI. And I think it was the first integration to introduce this idea of, I have a dependency on a different thing that is not here. Let me express that through the interaction service. So you get this thing and do it in such a way so that if I've got two DevTunnels, I don't get two notifications, right? Like coalesce them and stuff.
Yeah.
But then, I had the same question, was like, do I have a button that like, if you click it, it like runs Winget for you, or what, something else if you're on Mac? Or do I make it a button that opens a browser, or do I just make it a hyperlink? And I think at the time we didn't have these more advanced interaction service primitives. We only had like the notification bar and stuff.
Yep.
But I could totally imagine now that the banner would come up and there would be an optional button. There'd be a hyperlink that says click here to learn more about installing it, that would take you to the site's docs. But then there would be a button that's just like install now.
Yeah,
and it would bring up a dialogue where you get to choose what technology. Yeah,
exactly.
I could totally see that.
Hamburger menu that you can choose, Chocolatey install, Winget install, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then you've got, people can still choose. Like, you've got 4 developers on your team. One person can use a script to do it on their machine. Someone else can just use the buttons in the dashboard, and someone else can do something else. Yeah. But at least Aspire, we have a UX then where for a brand new user, they can just follow the bouncing ball, and at least they get set up and they can run the app. And then the people who are more opinionated about how their machine prereqs get managed, we can just help them to, hey, let them know, hey, you need this. And then they can go off and fix that the way that they want to.
And I'm sure that'll, that in theory is great, but how many devs actually can install things on their box simply with a script? So, that's
a really good question as well.
That's changing in the world too. So.
As Maddie will attest to, anytime we run a lab, and you've got 20 participants, there's always that one person who's using a machine with some corporate VPN and non-local admin user, and they just can't install anything. And it's like, I forgot. Some people work in those environments, and it's like, Yeah.
I think, how do you, you mentioned something of .NET Framework. You were back in the GAC days. So what, do you know the limiters for being able to support Framework right now?
So it's funnily supporting Framework using the way that we've done it for TypeScript and things for the things where we introduce a new app host model, like a new app host language model, that actually enables much more separation. And so there's really no technology dependency between the guest language and the actual engine. When you've got an app host CS or an app host CS project, it gets a little more complicated, just because at the moment in that world, you express your dependencies on your project resources as a project reference, and you can't really cross that. You can the support for crossing from new .NET project to old .NET project isn't like that straightforward, right? There's a lot of landmines, there's a lot of caveats. It's different project systems. One is the new MS Build SDK based stuff. The other one is the traditional CS Proj based stuff, and you can't really mix them. And so it would be technically possible, but it wouldn't look like it does for a regular C# project resource in a C# app host. It would be different. And so I think there are some customers who have who have sort of shoehorned in, like I have an IIS based integration. There you go. So there are ways to do it. You can get quite a long way, but I guess it's more about what your expectations are. If you're expecting to be able to open Visual Studio, open an app host, hit F5, and like the debugger attaches to everything and you can step through between different languages and stuff, like, yeah, that's a lot more involved than just, can I get the app host to start a .NET framework project, like one that runs an IIS or IIS Express. Yeah.
The reason that gets on my mind is you know, how many of your customers are stuck in framework? You know, there's quite a large group of people.
It's less and less every year. Like
it does. Yeah.
There are, you know, I think there will be apps that, I mean, never's a long time, but there will be apps that will just say will never move, and for various reasons, and that's fine. You know, because there are apps that live on Windows machines that are connected to the internet, that run in a factory somewhere, connected to some robot. That, you know, like, and those things are fine. Those apps don't need to change, so that's not a problem. But then there's more complicated, you know, scenarios, and so I don't think it's that different really to other, other ecosystems where they've had some major shift, whether it's Python 2 to 3 or Java, pick your version to some other version, and there's just like hard lines where it's very difficult to move across that line because you have a specific dependency that you just cannot remove. Now, that said, in the time of LLM agents, I know for a fact that there are people who have successfully done migrations from, you know, ASP.NET to ASP.NET Core in the last few months, simply because they now have coding agents, and they just would not have even attempted it before.
Nope, you would have never got.
Or they may have even attempted it before and then gone, this is too hard.
Yeah, or it's just too voluminous and like
it's not worth the investment of a human engineer, like spending, you know, literally scores and scores and scores and scores of hours to do that work. Whereas depending on the problem, I could potentially throw an agent at it, and in a few hours it could, and, you know, so X dollars of tokens, I could get that across the line. Like I think that does change the game a bit, but we're just starting to scratch the surface. Agreed. I think this will be a very interesting question and reflection next year, a year from now. Yeah,
I think when my daughter was born in 2020, and the last thing I did before parental leave was switch all our libraries to .NET Standard 2, and that migration finished from framework to core this year with the advent of the LLMs.
There you go.
So it was like a 5-6 year now project, but the LLMs turbocharged the end of it. And so anything new we built, we got to build in .NET Core, and the old stuff could use the same libraries, right? So LLMs have drastically made the cost of conversion much lower. Even though they cost money to use, it's still trivial compared to paying a dev to do that. And so
and the opportunity cost equation is different, right? Because you can do other things at the same time, whereas a human typically won't when you give them a task like that.
Because you got to keep all of it in your head. You're touching like
exactly.
You know, it's a nightmare.
The thing that scares me the most about the like agentic assisted migrations is how mature are the test scenarios for all of these things. Like I think we're getting to the point now where an agent, because we are, a lot of the .NET team works on modernization specific tooling now, agentic driven modernization stuff. And like, I think we're getting to the point now where you could reasonably like have an agent do most of the work of a framework to core migration for .NET. But like, that doesn't replace the work of making sure it still works. Like just because it compiles doesn't mean the experience is right. And when we did the Xamarin to Maui break, like it wasn't about getting, I mean, a lot of it was whack-a-moling to get the app to run. But then when the app ran, you had to look at every single screen and say, oh, that looks bad. Like, oh. So that scares me a lot. That's still going to be a lot of work. But I do think slowly it will get better.
Right. And I think, again, it's another place where I think that fuzzy kind of taste-based, what we thought was a uniquely human kind of thing. Like we all know, I think most of us who've been in the industry a while, how difficult and brittle it is to do UI automation to the point that you can rely on it as a test harness. I mean, there's been, you know, dozens of products that try to do that. And the reality is that it can work okay when the site or the UI doesn't change much. Like if you're working on an app where you literally don't change much, but that's not always the case. Very often it's not the case. You're constantly adding features, and so those tests just get brittle and stop working. But I think we've all possibly experienced it with LLMs and agents. You can just give it a picture and just say, does this look right to you? Does anything, and if you just prompt it with a few key phrases, says, does this screen look like it's consistently laid out compared to the other screens that we have here? Does the margins look correct? Does it look like anything's overlapping that shouldn't be? You can just kind of express things and they'll do a really good job now. Whereas in the past, you would definitely give that to a person and then have them rely on them to really find that stuff. So I think there's a lot of, again, that's another area where I expect to see a lot more movement and improvement, like Maddie said, over the next year.
Yeah, I'm shocked at, I just now started feeding pictures to it at work for various things, and I'm shocked that how well that works.
Yeah.
So
It's crazy.
it is. Well, I have exhausted all my questions. I do not.
Wow.
need to. Well, some of them were heavy hitters, and y'all had answers. I was expecting to stump something.
I know we're used to it, you know?
Yeah. I guess broadly, how do you determine what's an Aspire concern versus what's not?
That's the key. I mean, that's just like the age-old architecture question, platform architecture question. Like, how do you know when this fits in to the model and this is outside the scope of your model, right? And honestly, that's changed. So
I was gonna say, like, there are things now that a year ago we would have been like, that is not on us. Like even package restore, I think we had a really hard time going back and forth on should we allow Aspire to handle an NPM install or a UV sync or whatever. Like, yeah, taste as David N says in the chat, like taste is a big part of it. But I think we have not done anything in Aspire that made us feel like wildly uncomfortable at the time. We kind of slowly pushed the boundaries out. And as the boundaries have expanded, things that used to make us really uncomfortable make us less uncomfortable.
I mean, you say that, Maddie, but before
I know, I was saying that and I'm thinking, and I'm like, well,
before you joined, would it surprise you to know that even the idea of the dashboard was hugely controversial?
Yes.
In the beginning of the product.
Yes.
Hugely. So like it was someone on the original team or kind of adjacent was contributing at the time, went away and like did the first prototype of what it might mean to have a dashboard. And this, you know, at the time, I think we were very much more thinking of, we're going to put this into one of our existing products. Like if it's going to have UI, it would be in VS Code or VS or, you know, whatever. And the idea of let's just build our own dashboard and let's base it on OTel. Like even making the decision to base it on OTel and not something custom or something that's unique to a specific platform was a big one. Like that was a gamble at the time, which is bizarre to think now because it was only 3 years ago.
10 out of 10 decision.
Yeah.
Luckily. Yeah.
Good bet. I remember seeing the dashboard, like the very first demo of it, and being like, they're building UI, idiots. Like literally being like, why? Like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that to yourself?
It's a good idea that people can use it standalone.
Exactly.
Just throw the dashboard up to be an OTel collector.
Right.
Yeah. And that is huge.
Yeah.
Alex says in the chat, even Wait For took a while, and he's right. Like in that, after that first release, the first 6 months, there were a handful of things that we just got consistently asked about.
Yeah.
And we just weren't sure because we didn't know, we hadn't done enough. We didn't have enough sort of work behind us yet to really know how we would even achieve certain things. And so things like Wait For, like Fowler did a hacky prototype based on whatever internal implementation primitive that we happened to choose when we first wrote the middle of the engine. And, you know, David, who's in the chat here, will attest to how many times we've realized that the core of the Aspire app host engine, we have just abused something that was just randomly built that way in the beginning. And then we just keep utilizing it and then getting, you know, stretching it, and it starts to like break in weird ways, or we take dependencies that like if we'd started again, we definitely would have taken. And then that skill of, okay, as platform owners, how do we decide to gradually re-architect, refactor, re-platform individual pieces over time without just like breaking everyone by doing a big V2 release at some point? And so we've had a few, you know, folks watching probably know, there's like our eventing system, especially if you're building integrations like you are here. We've actually deprecated events, and a lot of that has been because we've specifically realized the big one was endpoint allocation. We used to have this assumption that you go through a phase when you start the app host where endpoints would be allocated, and then you would know all the ports and everything, and then you would start everything. Yeah. And that broke down like surprisingly quickly. Like it turns out sometimes you want to be able to start a resource randomly at a different time. And if it didn't exist before endpoints were allocated, well, what do you do now? Like, how do I get an endpoint and say, and how do I tell other people that they can listen to me? And so that required a complete overhaul of the endpoint lifecycle, but we did that over a few releases, right? And so,
I mean, container lifetimes. I remember when we shipped that, like talking about that, like this is the coolest feature ever. Like you can keep your container alive between runs.
Yep.
And that was because I joined right at GA, and so that was a little bit over 2 years ago now. And like one of the first things I think I remember writing down on the whiteboard was like I'm trying to find the picture of like the whiteboard when I wrote it all out, but like keep containers alive, I think was one of them.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. David mentioned in the chat the persistent executables now are doing
yes.
that. Yeah, it's pretty sick. I do have a question I forgot. You have seen enough integrations of languages now. Would you consider creating a central API for that? Choosing a package manager and implementing some sort of command that you define the command as the author to run, implementing a build thing like for what I'm going to butcher them, Marshall. I'm sorry. Gradle and what are the other ones? Like, so like,
Maven, yep.
Yeah, Maven, sure, yeah. And so, like Perl has, you can pick your package manager. You can like there's a lot of things that rhyme across languages. Yeah. Really like 4 or 5 different things that you need to define. Is there any hunger for simplifying a language integration?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, a lot of that comes down to the T word, like taste as a platform and sort of platform architect. And sometimes you don't always have to identify boilerplate and then distill it into new primitives that are reinforced in the object model, type model, API model. Sometimes it's okay for things to be just patterns that are repeated over and over again. And I think that's a journey I've gone through. I think in my career, especially working on .NET, for a long time there was very much, I think the approach was you design a set of primitives and then you build on top of those primitives, and you're very much cognizant of being dry, never repeat yourself, create strong type level bonding contracts between things, and then what happens is, from personal experience, what happens when you do that for a long time on a single platform is it grows and grows and grows, and you can never delete anything because people depend on it. And then people always say, yeah, but this thing that you did doesn't quite meet what I need. Can you add another overload that lets me do X? Can you add another event that happens before this other event? And then after you look back 10 years later, and like what started out as a very simple, elegant 5-event, 4 concept model has turned into a 27 event lifecycle with like recurring dependencies and like complex object models. And then as what we call, like, literally we term them escape hatches, like these God mode or these God level events or God level objects that are like, well, ultimately the escape hatch is you replace this interface and you re-implement everything so it works the way that you want, right? And so I think anyone who's worked on a platform for a while will be or consuming a platform for a while will recognize what I'm talking about here. And so over time, I think there's been more of a move towards, again, convention over configuration or convention over strongly contracted or strongly typed contracts. And the taste is, when do you pull one lever versus another? When do you realize that this convention is so pervasive that there are benefits to be had by introducing a new lower level contract that all the examples of that thing adhere to? Does that allow us to do something else? and resisting the urge to just apply the, oh, I never need to repeat myself, I should just have a base class that people can inherit from because it's mostly the same. There are trade-offs, like, and so the language one is an interesting one. I haven't really given that a lot of thought as to whether if there's a specific sort of new primitive we could introduce. I think that what we've done is mostly the primitives we've settled on a much lower level. So we have this idea of annotations, we have this idea of resources, we have extension methods, which are based on types. So we use types more to drive the user consumption, like the developer coding experience, whereas conventions are supposed to drive behavior. So when we want to say, here's a contract about how we behave, we create a convention and we say, put one of these conventions inside your resource stock conventions collection, and then we will find it, right? Versus if your resource has this interface, it'll behave this way. We made that decision quite early on, and that's worked pretty well for us. It hasn't really broken down yet. But I admit it doesn't necessarily look like how we would have built something in system.star, right? Because the way that we build stuff at different levels is often different. So
yeah, Alex had a good note in the chat. It's like the dry era is, I'm not going to call it dead, but like LLMs changed that drastically. Like it's so much less like code smelly to repeat yourself, you know. So yeah, and I don't even think I want that necessarily. I was just curious if you guys had thought about, because languages kind of rhyme across how they're implemented. There's always some sort of package system.
Yeah.
Some of them have to, you know, you got to do some sort of build, some sort of restore, all that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And the reality is we haven't really built many low-level primitives when it comes to resources. Like literally it's executables and containers and custom. And like project is kind of a special one. And the reality is project in the new world where we have like guest languages is kind of the one that doesn't fit, right? Project was one of the original ones, but it's very much tied to C#. And it has these kind of these, and if we were going to do it again, that wouldn't exist the way it does today. We would do it differently, right? In fact, we talk about internally about Project Resource V2, which we kind of have the beginnings of, which will plug C# projects or other project types into your app host in a different way to the way that we do it right now. And we don't really have any more. Like there aren't really any more. There's not like there's a hierarchy of container like types or patterns. It's just like we have container, and then we have these patterns like, well, containers have images and tags and maps and like files and stuff like that. Our primitives are kind of lower than that, and then we have a very, very small number above that. But it's a very good question, and I wouldn't rule it out that at some point we look at N languages and we go, you know what, there's enough here now. Like we could replat these on some new set of abstractions and get this benefit. Like we were never going to do it just for the sake of it. There would have to be a clear benefit.
Yeah, I don't even trying to steelman what the benefit would be.
What would it be? Yeah, exactly.
Some niche language faster. Like it makes
but to your point with LLMs, it's like you could just point. Yeah. You can point an agent at the Perl one and say, write one like this for this language.
Yeah.
And it'll spit something out in 20 minutes now.
Yeah. If dry, oh no, backronym for wet, sooner for no. Call the cops, dude, cops.
I love it. Damp. We'll have to come up with some different words we can make some acronym with.
Oh man, let me double check my notes because I did miss that one. You mentioned a little bit about V2, like what is so different about it? That was on my notes, but y'all had kind of talked about it a little bit. It seems like it's too early to really talk about.
There's two V2s. There's App Host V2 and Project Resource V2.
Yeah.
Did you say App Host V2?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's super early.
Okay, well,
very early.
I'll come back and grill you on that later.
That one's more nebulous. Yeah.
What about Project Resource V2?
Okay, so Project Resource V2 is really about making C# projects work more like every other language in the app host. So today we took shortcuts when we first did it, right? And so we said, oh, we've got this app host project, and then you add like your ASP.NET Core thing to it. It's like, well, when you .NET run that, which is what it was back then, who builds the ASP.NET Core project, right? It's like, oh, we have to make sure it's built before we run it. and we need to make it work in Visual Studio. And so we kind of, we'll just add a project reference, because then for free, when you .NET build or you build in Visual Studio, it will build dependencies first. So then we know it's built, and then we can run it, right?
Yeah.
And so that was really as simple as it was. We just kind of like did it that way because it was cheap, and it meant we didn't have to solve a whole bunch of problems.
And it worked out well with service defaults being a project template.
And it did when yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so then fast forward to people wanting to add C# projects to an app host, but the project wasn't in the solution. So they didn't want a project ref. They wanted like a file ref. So there is actually a method. You can say add project and give it a path.
Yeah.
The problem with that is no one builds it. So if you've ever tried to actually use that, it doesn't work very well, because your app host builds and starts, and then it tries to run your CS proj from the path. And if you're outside of Visual Studio, it literally just calls .NET run no build on it, because we had this assumption that we wouldn't need to build it. So it just doesn't work properly. And then we added file-based apps, and that had the same problem. So then we introduced this experimental add C# app method to make it more like a JavaScript app and add Python app and those type of things. And then I did a prototype where we moved the responsibility for compiling the C# project resources into the app host, so that the add C# app resource actually like figured out, oh, I need to call .NET build on this, right? And did the work to actually manage that and like dedupe and coalesce and sequentialize, because you can't do parallel builds of the same project and all that type of stuff, right? So I did an experiment and kind of proved that that could work. And so then there's overlap with things like hot reload support. How does it work in Visual Studio versus VS Code versus Rider versus the Aspire CLI? There's like all these considerations. And then as part of building the TypeScript support and every other language, a different model emerged, which is that when you add a resource and that resource represents source code, it's the responsibility of the resource integration to build that source code, to do whatever is required, like restore packages, build it, like do that work. We do that for everything except C# currently. So Project Resource V2 is about making the C# one work like all the other ones. That's the short answer.
The reason that we haven't just done it, right? Like, because when we talk about it, it sounds like, why don't you just do it? Because Aspire was created with like Damon was saying, like we relied on a lot of VS mechanisms, which is the same reason when we were talking about earlier that like framework projects kind of just work. Like, because VS handles a lot of it. So to go the other way, we have to like undo basically a lot of custom logic that's in there. That's part of like the project system and VS DBG and like all these things, and rebuild it ourselves. And that's not going to be impossible, because there's stuff that makes VS Code work with C#. Obviously the command line is like a thing that works. But it's and there's a lot of just there's going to be like a change in behavior. It's probably all going to be good, if not bad, but things are going to work differently. And with C# app, I think the first reason we really wanted it was file-based apps too.
Yeah, we needed a way to support.
No project reference for that, and we were like,
exactly.
How do we build it?
And one of the file-based app, now that you've mentioned it, the pain point I had with it was the service defaults. Have those been like rolled into Aspire hosting now, so that you don't need a separate?
Service defaults is fundamentally a C# thing. It is literally just about when you have .NET projects, because again, rewinding all the way back to when we first started thinking about this project, we were looking at a lot of Microsoft first-party services internally. And one of the things we noticed a lot, and Fowler specifically went out and did a bunch of research, was that, wow, each one of these people tends to have this class library project where they put all their common stuff. So they're running 20 different microservices or just 20 different APIs. And then they want to set up OTel, they want to set up logging, they want to set up whatever, all the common concerns, a bunch of stuff in DI. They would just have like common methods like that represent the defaults for all their services. And so that's where the concept of service defaults came in. And one of the key things though was that it wasn't a library, it was just code, like, because it changes. Like from sprint to sprint, you would add stuff to it. Like as you would move stuff out of individual services into service defaults, you would plug in configuration. As you upgrade versions of the platform you're using, you would update stuff in there so that everyone gets it. It's just like factoring. And so it was, honestly, service defaults was very much more about how do we give you a template to set you up for a world where you're probably going to have more services over time, quote unquote cloud native and microservice type of architecture. And 3 years later, it's just not as big a deal as it was back then.
Yeah.
It's still useful
yeah.
for like starting something from scratch and going, I want OTel and the reality is it works really well in .NET because we did the work in the .NET platform side of things to build primitives that like DI and logging and configuration and HTTP client and the OTel integration, like all that stuff is like built in by the team and is just assumed to be there. That stuff doesn't really exist on other stacks unless you go higher than the language. So like if you're doing Spring Boot, then you have those things. But if you're doing Java, you don't. Right?
Yeah,
it just depends, right? So
if I were going to do it in Perl, I'd have to, add those packages. If you do,
you have to make a choice.
With OTLP, I would hide that I'm adding the OTel library behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So do you intend that you deprecate service defaults or only it? Because right now, if I want a C# file-based app host, sometimes I have to go add a service defaults to that project, and that feels stinky.
So the app host doesn't depend on the service defaults. So there's the only thing, what service defaults does when you've got a C# sort of set up is just enable globally for those C# resources, make sure OTel is on, make sure HTTP client is set up for service discovery, so that when we tell you, hey, you're going to talk to this URL, we inject the environment variables with the right shape so that your HTTP client configuration picks it up automatically. Yeah. It's that stuff. What you would have seen is for other languages, we don't use the same format. Like we ended up inventing a different connection string properties thing. We just inject raw URLs now because that works better for other stacks. But for .NET, because of all the other decisions we made in ASP.NET Core and Microsoft extensions and those things, service defaults, I think, still has some value, but it's less and less an Aspire thing, honestly. It's more and more just like this is how you get .NET set up for OTel and HTTP client and logging and stuff.
We talked about building a service defaults and like shipping one on NPM and shipping one on pip and whatever. And we kept putting it off because we were basically like locking Damien in various rooms and beating him until he could get OTel to work for various languages. And this is like, a year ago, right? Yeah, pre-LLM. And so like Damien spent weeks and weeks and weeks trying to just get Python to send like one structured trace because dev certs and all of these other things had to fall into place in Aspire. And by the time we felt like, hey, maybe we actually could do a reasonable default instrumentation JS or OTel.py or whatever, the agent could write it in one shot. Yeah. So, and it's not a particularly token intensive task either. Right. It's not like something that's going to blow out your billing on Claude or anything. So we were just like, oh, I guess we don't really need to do that anymore. And our templates do have OTel in them. I think. Yeah.
That's right.
So
and
it
doesn't, the other part is that for .NET, we felt a lot more confident and almost like,
you should do it this way.
It was correct for us to say this is how you should do it. That is just not true in the same way in all the other language systems. And like to Maddie's point, I found that when I went to just like build a Node app and add OTel, there was no like the canonical way that the Open Telemetry site told you to do it. Like I had never seen any Node app look like that before. Node doesn't have built-in structured logging, unlike .NET. And so it was like, well, what structured logging library am I going to use? You go to npm.org and you pick one, right? Like, and that's a very personal decision for a team rather than we're going to give you this one. That's how it felt, right? So
and funny, part of this is all rhyming with when I added OTel to Perl, it was trying to figure out how to do it. And somebody made an OTel SDK, and it is what I chose. And at first, implementing that on Windows was brutal because you guys at one point around November, December, you did not support JSON. You only supported protobuf.
Hotel, yeah.
So, but for Perl to support, I tried to keep Windows Perl comparable to Linux Perl, and that's difficult sometimes. One of the brutal things is you need all the G++, the makes, the everything on there to be able to build the Hotel SDK in a way that allows you to get the Google protobuf library as well and build that. And I did all that work to get it in protobuf, and then at one point I nuked my machine to test the install instructions, and then I found out the JSON worked again. So it's like y'all had added it.
Yeah, sounds like something we would do.
But yeah, and there's 2 tiers of languages with Hotel, right? There's the ones that auto instrument themselves at the language level,
Yep.
and then there's the ones like Perl where you got to do all the instrumentation yourself, and that's a beating. So
Yeah, and I went through that doing it with Python too, where the Python Hotel experience that the Hotel website told you was this auto instrumentation thing was what they pushed you towards, and you literally had to like bootstrap it by running a command that would detect all your dependencies and then pull down a whole bunch of other dependencies to Hotel instrument all of your dependencies. And it's not dissimilar in .NET. Like there are Hotel extension libraries to add Hotel support to random libraries, but in .NET, I think it was just we had so much more in the box. It was like once we had instrumented HTTP client and the ADO.NET base, database access layer and ASP.NET Core for the web server and and the runtime, et cetera, you get so much that, or logging, for example, right? The extensions.logging and the metrics stuff. There was just less burden on going out in the ecosystem and having them. So I feel like when we started, like Redis, the Redis client library, stackexchange.redis for .NET didn't have Hotel instrumentation, and it didn't even have instrumentation using the .NET primitives that get mapped to Hotel. So like meters or metrics and event traces and those things, activities, right? But we worked with, the community did a great job, and then we would send PRs and things. And then that's where what's related to this we haven't brought up is the idea of client integrations. So in .NET, we have Aspire client integrations.
Yes.
We don't have those for other languages. And that's something else that we still kind of asked, should we have these for other languages? And so far, there just hasn't been a need.
Yeah, I haven't run into anything that needed it, like for a language like Perl. I don't know what I would. I guess technically Perl, like I put a Perl API shape right here. You see Perl script, but there's a add Perl API that adds extra arguments, whatever. I guess you could split it that way, but I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah. Again, the reason client integrations sit on top of a bunch of things that we take for granted in .NET, DI, configuration system that is identical in every app, logging system that's identical. The retry, we took a dependency on Poly, right? So any retry logic goes through Poly, so on and so forth, right? Hotel is the other one. So those core sets of things are always going to be the same. And so we were happy to build out those things, to have them work the same way. I just don't think that's true in other stacks the same way. So
I don't either. No, I don't think so.
All right, last question, and then we're gonna wrap it up from David N. Do you know anything about how Perl handles certs? And is cert trust and termination something that has like an actual way to do it, or is it kind of a shit show?
Let me get back to you. I'll tell you my confidence level, and there's a reason I put with Perl certificate trust as experimental in my thing, because I am not the most up to date on like the security aspect of stuff. So I don't want to like bless it until I know for sure. But from what I've tested, I have parity with other languages. I can get it, especially using, shout out to David, his extension to give dev containers their certs. I've been able to make sure that the API can serve on HTTPS, but I don't know enough to answer his question, unfortunately. So I'll have to, I can look into that though.
It's a good question. Fowler's here to say bye.
Just in time.
Just in time.
The JIT goodbye, dude.
Oh, goodbye. Wait, that's so cute. Oh my God. Well, Omnideath, Matt. Nice to finally meet you over
It
the
was.
videos. Thanks for being around. And everyone, your blog, omnideath.dev.
One post.
One post.
That's all you need.
That's all you need. And
all
it's a
you
great
need.
post. And I think if anyone ever has any questions about the community toolkit or being like a contributor or whatever, would it be okay for them to reach out to you in Discord or like?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right. Easy enough.
I'm
AKA
in there
.ms.
enough. It's not like I'm like second place to Fowler on there. Like
You might be, yeah. You're probably pretty close. I wonder if there's. Oh my god! But thanks.
Me or my
everybody.
agent.
Oh my god!
well, this is done.
All right,
Thanks-
have a good
thanks for
weekend.
having
Everyone
me.
play some Zelda this weekend. I think that's
Please.
item.
Link to the past. Do it.
Yeah, that's the move. All righty. See y'all later. Bye.
Bye, guys.